Hi, I'm Steve Davies, physician and Director of Courses at Diploma MSc, and I'd like to welcome you on our Induction program, which is designed to help our students through the process of navigating and interacting with the Diploma MSc courses that you've chosen to study. First of all, I'd like to thank you for choosing our program. I know there's many programs out there that you could have elected, so we want this to be the best for you. Therefore, please do interact with the program. You will find that there will be presentations from many of our senior academic staff, and the idea is that it will provide you with a good introduction of how to study online and also how to interact with the website. And of course, it sets our expectations as well in terms of what you need to do to be successful on the course. Importantly, also, please do interact with the lectures, because our students, support staff are here to help you. So if you do have questions, fire those off. We welcome those. And our support staff will be there to interact with you live, online, to answer those queries where possible. It is important that you do interact, because we learn as much from you as you do from us, and it's our constant drive to try and continually improve what we can offer the student to help them. So I hope you enjoy it. Thanks very much for studying us, and we look forward to seeing you on the course.
Okay, hello everybody. A very warm welcome to be part of the university and the exciting step you've made to join our innovative partnership with Diploma MSc. We now have, the partnership has grown extensively over the last few years. We now have a whole suite of courses that we deliver in a truly unique and innovative program. I have a great job at the university in terms of I'm the University Link Officer, so I oversee the whole portfolio of courses we have in partnership with Diploma MSc. Today is about giving you an overview and a flavour, just in my presentation, about some of the academic elements of the programme, structure, how elements are marked, feedback, expectations, both of you as a student and from us as a university, in terms of what's involved with the programme. So in my talk, I'll outline, certainly not all of the answers, but I'll give you an overview of the course structure, a general overview of the course structure. All our courses, okay, the majority of our courses follow this very defined pattern, okay, and a formula that works in terms of our online student population and the journey you make as an online student. So I'm going to drill down slightly on some of the module aims and objectives, how that works within the university and how that guides your journey throughout the course. Teaching methods that are used. Now, of course, again, not an extensive list of the teaching methods, but as an online program with the structure we have, okay, we utilise some key teaching methods within the program. Okay, how will you, as an important question as a student, how will you be assessed and marked? Okay, very important, the levels of support. You're in a double situation, as it were, okay, because you're both a university student and you're very well catered for and looked after, an additional level of support from the team, learner Diploma MSc, and a dedicated student support system. We have links through to all of our university support processes but your first point of call in terms of any questions regarding process and support that's available, okay, comes through to your online support delivered by the team here at Learner. Okay, very, very importantly, in terms of you being a student with us, is this student expectation. Okay, so not only what you get from the course, but what we need from you as a student to be engaged and process and go through the course to get the best possible outcome. Okay, you've all made a significant decision to join us to further your careers, your learning, your experience within these areas. Okay, but there's an expectation on you in terms of what you do amongst the course and how the best ways, models for you to proceed through. Okay, so what are the courses? Okay, the courses, as you've seen through application stage, questions you may have had, okay, they're level 7. So in UK university terms, it's building towards a level 7 qualification, the ultimate of which there is a master's and beyond. The first stage is a postgraduate diploma. Okay, so the PgDip is a postgraduate diploma. It's 1 year, it's run over a calendar year, and it's part-time. So there's a challenge there, and part of the student expectation is how you're going to manage your time within the programme amongst your other busy clinical, professional workload balance. Okay, but they're part-time, you're not a full-time student. Okay, 1 calendar year, so universities operate across academic years. Our courses for 2 entry points, September and March. Okay, it takes 12 months to progress sequentially through the modules until completion. Okay, so slightly outside of a university traditional program, September to the following summer, you take 12 months to progress through this program. Okay, 120 credits, that's just university terminology, okay, in terms of academically what you need to achieve to be able to achieve your PgDip. Okay, so a master's is a number of credits beyond that, and I'll explain when I give an overview of how it then becomes a master's. So for the majority of students on our programs, they apply, they're accepted, they commit to the postgraduate diploma, okay, to achieve these 120 credits in the defined course you've signed up for. How would you get the 120 credits? Well, you complete 6 modules. Okay, each module takes 6 weeks. Okay, and we're 100%, the innovation of our course delivery, we're 100% online delivery. Okay, we're incredibly successful of managing and delivering our content online to take you through that journey. Okay, and I'll explain how that's managed in terms of size of courses you come onto, and what this term tutor groups relates to. Okay, so for the majority it's the PgDip, okay, over a calendar year, okay, to get that 120 credits after completion of 6 modules. Important to say, our modules run in order sequentially. Okay, so you do module 1 and then progress to module 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 to complete the course. Okay, so following the PgDip, a majority of students wish to step off, take the qualification. Okay, if that's what you applied for at the start, you do that, you achieve that. Of course, you're a university student, we celebrate that success, and you're invited to a graduation ceremony to collect your postgraduate diploma. Okay, to define the MSc component, there's further study involved. Okay, so some of you may sign up for an MSc at the point of application and process onto the course. There you've committed to taking the postgraduate diploma. Okay, you're getting the credits for the postgraduate diploma, 120 credits, but then you're going to do another calendar year study. Okay, you require a further 60 credits to achieve an MSc. Okay, so there's a decision to make right from application stage in terms of your process. You can obtain a PgDip, okay, take that qualifications, have a break, and then apply to do the MSc year, or you can apply from the very start to do the MSc year, but it's important in terms of your expectation, what happens in terms of that process. Okay, the MSc year uses a similar format for one of the modules, so you will do a research methods-based methodology module in terms of preparation for a professional project. So the research methods module follows a similar format, okay, but related to the online forums and discussions and elements of assessment that's required. The major aspect of that year on the MSc, though, of course, is the professional project. Okay, and it's clear at the start around the professional project, okay, that these rarely, and it is important to say rarely, include primary data collection. Okay, your projects, okay, which may require ethics and human participants, okay, are rarely achievable in the time frame you have within that MSc year. However, clinical audit, okay, developing models, okay, processes, outcomes related to your research, so secondary based projects on already published literature, okay, are the model we use across the variety and the majority of our professional projects. Okay, by the time you progress through that journey, that professional project, which makes up a significant number of weeks of your MSc year, okay, is self-directed. You have a personal tutor, still supervisor for that process, okay, and is managed online. We're incredibly successful of having publishable research at the end of that period with the online supervision you get with your tutor and supervisor at that stage. Okay, so overall, within the PgDip MSc, okay, you're a level 7 UK, beyond undergraduate, okay, postgraduate student studying there. So it's higher level academic skills, level 7 skills, okay, such as evaluating evidence, producing models of care, developing, deploying guidelines within your professional project outlook. All of our modules across the PgDip and MSc, okay, have defined learning outcomes. They have aims and objectives of the modules and learning outcomes, which are your guide to your student expectation amongst those modules. At the end of the module, what are you expected to be able to do at the end of that module, academically, professionally related, in terms of the skill sets developed across those modules. Okay, very specific, we haven't got time to go through every single module, aim, overview and learning outcome, okay, but you have a detailed student handbook and all the information hosted amongst your learning platform, which can detail specific module aims and learning outcomes. How big is a module? Okay, well, that's usually in university terminology. For a 20 credit module, okay, it's 200 hours of nominal work. Now, we're not expecting 200 hours, okay, of online engagement to achieve that 200 hours. It comes from a variety of activities, and not all of them, okay, are all 200 hours dedicated online. Then clearly, the module is delivered online, but it's important to say if people see 200 hours, okay, how they assess what that 200 hours means. It just means within the University of South Wales, to achieve a 20 credit module, you've done 200 hours of nominal work across different areas of the module. Okay, time-wise, how that looks, okay, is it lasts 6 weeks. You have 6 weeks of intensity of the module, of the learning environment, and then you have a 2-week break, and then the next module starts. Is that still correct? Okay, so over an 8-week period, okay, you have cycled through one of the modules and you're ready to start the next module. Okay, expectation within those modules, we'll drill down on individual aspects, okay, but there is a commitment. Okay, I highlighted the 200 hours, but there is a commitment in terms of your online engagement. It's only an online delivered modality, so there is an element on you in terms of your engagement that you take place, especially with one aspect, which I'll detail shortly, of that engagement across the module. Okay, so yes, we expect regular online activity at least 3 times per week, okay, across a variety of assessment modalities. Yes, regular reading, reflection, preparation at other times. Okay, and reflection in daily practice comes out, and I'll explain where that's picked up of in terms of our assessment strategy. So in terms of module topics, okay, well, that's going to depend particularly on which course you've signed up to do. Okay, so across the suite of courses, within each of the 6 modules has a very defined theme pertinent to the course you signed up to. So on the screen you can see an example from rheumatology. Okay, and then within that module, each module will then have specific module aims and learning outcomes pertinent to the module topic. Okay, so here within rheumatology, you can see that there are defined areas related to that particular aspect of module delivery, such as diagnosis and management of inflammatory arthritis, drugs and therapeutics pertinent to those aspects, and multidisciplinary treatment. Okay, so it is very much going to depend on which course you're on, okay, and which 6 modules make that up. It's very clear in terms of the structure, okay, and that's your familiarisation amongst your online platform, Moodle, in terms of which modules and the orders of the modules. Okay, as I said, the order of the modules isn't going to change. Okay, so when you've seen the structure, which is module 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know how your next year of learning and that journey is going to progress through the topics. Okay, so exactly how then do we take what we're going to learn in the modules into actually doing the learning, in terms of how does that shape and how does that look for you as a student? Okay, it's important. So there's very theories of learning, and not to load up this presentation with theories of learning, but it's important to know this is adult self-directed learning. Okay, you will be guided, you will be structured, you will be tutored, you will be supported in your learning. Okay, but a major emphasis, postgraduate, level 7, adult-centered learning. Okay, and within that there's a host of variety of support and aspects, and actually peer-to-peer support, which we pride ourselves on in terms of part of the large innovation of this learning platform, in terms of the success of how this content is delivered to you. Okay, so it's adult-centered focus, it's around your busy, professional, clinical lives and workloads and balances that you have to make as you are a part-time student. Okay, you're achieving level 7, higher level postgraduate outcomes in terms of completion of each of your modules. As I said, a massive strength to the program, okay, is your peer-to-peer support. There are tasks involved where you rely on your peers, okay, but your daily interactions amongst and on the platform, okay, that you will be doing is your peer-to-peer support, your discussions and fellow learning that you pick from your peers around you within your aspects. And that's related to a tutor group, and in terms of how that's divided up, I shall explain shortly. Okay, so there is a social environment, there's a social learning aspect to it, there's an individual learning aspect to it, there's peer-to-peer support, and there's tutor-student support, all within the mix of interaction that you get within one of our modules. Okay? And that's across the suite of programs and courses that we run. Okay, so how are you going to be assessed? What type of work do you have to do across one of your modules on the PgDip? And importantly, that first element, the first module on the MSc, well, it follows, as I said, a set pattern. Okay, so here on the screen you can see 4 of the areas in which you will have to perform an activity or be involved in activity and learning within the module. So we have an academic forum. Okay, it makes up the highest percentage of the overall marking structure and percentage of marks you get. I'll explain that in detail. Okay, coming up shortly. Group or individual activity. Okay, depending on the module, depending on the type of activity, it falls into one of those 4 categories. Again, I'll give some more detail on that. Reflective journal, 10%. So here I direct you to a separate presentation on the reflective journal. Okay, support around it, what actually is involved, methods of best practice within completing the reflective journal. Okay, and very importantly, at the end of the 6 weeks, okay, where you have a defined time given to you, okay, and period of completion after each module is an end of module exam. Okay, and that carries 30% of the overall weighting towards a grade. So for the university, that's what we call the assessment matrix. Okay, how do all the elements of assessment come together? So your module mark is based on your performance across those 4 activities. Okay, so the academic forum, okay, I would say key important aspect within this online learning modality. Okay, so the academic forum is where you are discussing with your peers and with tutor support and involvement in terms of aspects very much related to the module you're doing, which then is related to the course that you're doing. So here we have threaded discussion groups, okay, on the Moodle site. Okay, we have conversations going on as you're assessed in terms of your engagement and your involvement in the discussion on the Moodle site. Okay, within that you can use elements of practice that's going on, media reports, okay, but it's in terms of how you present that and discuss that within the academic forum. Okay, there will be some clinical case scenarios, case specifics given. It isn't just a free form, it very much is structured, threaded, seeded by your tutor. Your tutor isn't there to answer every question, okay, it'll be very formulaic and descriptive in what they are. There are standards and similarities, of course, to remain consistency across modules, okay, across the courses. However, your tutor is there to facilitate and guide, okay, and they're very much experienced in terms of both the online learning forum and the content you are discussing. Okay, so the tutors have been assessed by the university in terms of their capability, caliber, experience to deliver within that topic and specific subject area. Okay, so here you may have discussion of relevant literature for the module, personal experience, clinical examples relevant to the module, okay, and aspects of work within that discussion that help you and support you achieve module aims and objectives. Okay, so it's important within here, this is an academic forum, okay, so quality of writing, presentation of writing, most importantly, okay, which I'll come back to, referencing and avoiding plagiarism. So it isn't a forum to copy and paste material, it is that you're presenting academic level quality writing and presentation and engagement within that forum. Okay. Okay, so here we have group and individual activities. Okay, again, within the assessment matrix and what you have to do. Okay, this is a great way to demonstrate a variety of skills and achievements within the module. So here we have, especially if it's a group activity, where there's going to be a requirement on a coordination structure with different members of the group coming together to join at the end in terms of presenting an overall piece of work on behalf of the group. Every group member, okay, must play an active role within that, but of course you need one coordinator and control aspect to that in terms of dividing up work streams and aspects to bring together. So we look for a group leader to be nominated. Okay, now there's several ways. Your tutor will take you through the process of the best way. Okay, obviously of course there's 6 modules where we can have individuals be group leaders, we can have co-leaders, okay, to do within that, but it shows another element in terms of how you coordinate activity amongst the group and what's required. Okay, so it may be a very particular task that needs to be coordinated and brought together. Each module has the task elements clearly defined upon the module page. Okay, so maybe at the end of that you have to prepare an individual document that is very much particular to the module you've been doing, relevance to the group work, and also draw upon elements of your own group practice. Okay, so depending upon the course and the individual module, okay, there are a variety of examples of work that could fall into that category. Okay, you may be producing guidelines, okay, you may be coordinating an audit, producing an audit, okay, some more structured educational work, or a group literature review. Okay, so it is going to depend on the exact module you're doing and the element there. But the leadership component, okay, just demonstrates that additional aspect to the work there, okay, and then in terms of sharing that leadership role as you progress through the modules. Okay, the reflective journal, again, this is much more detailed in a separate presentation, but an element of your assessment amongst a module on the PgDip. Okay, and then again on the first module of the MSc is a reflective journal aspect. Okay, where you are personally recording your learning journey across the module that's taken place. Okay, so it's very much encouraged and developed as the module progresses. So it's not a complete reflection when the module is finished. There's a deadline at the end of the module, just like the other assessment points that this needs to be completed by. So it's a continual reflection and observation, okay, and comments and suggestions in terms of your learning journey, challenges, okay, structure that you've adapted to, other new areas of learning that you've been pulled into in terms of how the modules develop. Again, you will be guided by your tutor, who will have a look at journal entries and aspects and guide you amongst that process. Again, it's important that you spend time looking at that separate presentation that relates to the reflective journal. Okay. So, has the reflective journal, amongst that, has that met your own learning needs? What were your learning needs? And again, the models of completing a reflective journal are covered elsewhere. Did your learning needs change as the module progressed? Okay, did you adapt to a certain area and realise you were weaker in other areas? Okay, but it's very important, a key aspect that I look for within my tutor groups is there a reflection to their professional practice? Because this is part-time, you have that clinical professional aspect that you can relate from your practice to the module or from the module to the practice, vice versa. Okay, but are you pulling in elements from your practice into your discussion, or likewise as an area of the discussion triggered some activity within your own professional practice? That's a high level reflection amongst the educational aspect and the practice aspect that's going on. Okay, and there's a variety of examples hopefully you will get as you build through the modules where you've been applying vice versa across the module to practice or practice to module. Okay, end of module test, how might that look? Okay, well it's similar across all of our courses and modules. Okay, the end of module test consists of 30 multiple choice questions relating specifically to the module you've completed. Okay, so you have to complete it within an hour. Okay, within the module page there's a defined section with instructions related to the module test. So an example, how might that look within the module? Okay, well here we have from previous tests that we've utilised how that might look. Okay, a key question, a STEM, as it's called, a question, and a variety potential. As I'm sure majority of us through our previous undergraduate and other postgraduate training elements have done multiple choice questions before. Okay, there is only one, the single best answer that you can pick. Okay, from there. So you have to work through. It is directly related to the module material that's gone before the end of the module that you've covered within there. Okay, so here we have specific question there related to pulmonary arterial hypertension. Okay, so that could usually find itself within the respiratory aspect there. Okay, so 30 questions and a very defined time limit to complete that test. How do we mark you? Okay, well this is important for the online aspect of there, that it's clear in terms of how you're going to be assessed within there. Okay, so we have a module marking grid, and I make reference, you can draw to how the tutors are going to assess you within that module marking grid, and that's within your course handbook, which you can access via the site. Okay, key here, okay, within your discussion, online discussion, is delivery, promptness, relevance, expression, and engagement with the community. This goes back to, in terms of relevance, expression, okay, and how you've delivered it in terms of it's an academic writing aspect. Okay, so it is assessed in terms of quality of the presentation. Okay, so for example, you wouldn't write in text speak, okay, in terms of how you make an entry within there. The whole structure and presentation of it should be presented as how you would present an academic piece of work. Okay, promptness I'll qualify shortly as well. Okay, so here we have some examples of discussions in response to a thread where the following question was asked. Okay, so within one of the discussions, okay, this question arose. Okay, what do you think about the debate relating to tight glycemic control in people with prior cardiovascular disease? Okay, so primarily this would be within the diabetes course. Okay, well that just as a question itself, there's a variety of areas where you can go in terms of how you would respond to that. Okay, here's a response that isn't going to be graded very high, in fact would be a fail. Okay, in answer to that question, yeah, it was great. Okay, how would it be marked? Well, according to the marking grid, okay, promptness. So this is, you know, the time it takes for individuals to respond to that question that's been posed. Okay, so there's a defined element, okay, that's clear within your course handbook in terms of the expectation on you to respond to that. Now this was answer, yeah, it was great, it was actually very prompt, so 3 out of 4 for that. However, again, I go back to my first point, okay, it's still an academic piece of work that's presented, okay, and yeah, it was great, fails across a number of those elements of how it's being assessed, okay. The delivery was exceptionally poor, 0 out of 4, okay, expression, 0 out of 4 in terms of academic quality of presentation, okay. Community relates to, has that seeded further debate, has that seeded further discussion within the online, your peer-to-peer group? Clearly it hasn't. Okay, it's a very closed statement. Yeah, it was great. So there that discussion ends. Okay, so that's a fail within that regard. Relevance, they've responded to the specific question. Okay, but clearly there could be a lot more relevance worked into that response. Okay, so that's the not so good. That's an example of a fail. An example of a top mark excellent. Okay, you can see they're completely different. Okay, well detailed, well structured. Okay, it was a prompt response. Okay, and it's clearly they're relevant to the content of the question. And more importantly, as you can see at the end there, has anyone else any experience with the use of this particular drug, or indeed filed a yellow card, which is pertinent to the discussion that's been going on. So there, that clearly has seeded further debate and is expecting further response and discussion amongst that. Okay, so across those elements of a marking grid that your tutors have and are assessing you on, okay, you can see in stark contrast, 2 responses, okay, across a spectrum of fail or excellent responses. Okay, so it's important to note that it's not to fall into a comfortable environment of just firing off a response because you're online, okay, just reading something on the screen and firing off. It's an academic discussion, okay, that's looked at across those variety of areas in terms of quality and content and relevance and promptness and delivery of your post that you're responding to. Overall, for the discussion, okay, you will have a score given to that based on those elements we just looked at. Okay, again, it's very important before you start, as you go into module 1, that you look at that marking grid on your student handbook. Of course, you can discuss with the tutor as well, that the individual tutor for that module, your expectations around, or if you're not sure about certain aspects, if you make a post and you're not sure, that's what your tutor's there for, to provide some guidance in terms of the type of post you've made. There is a bit of experience that develops, of course, from your very first post, okay, maybe a little bit anxious about exactly what to put, how to structure, okay, but you will gain experience very much over the first week of posting, and then by module 4 or 5, okay, then you're very much used to the expectation around what those posts should be related to. Okay, but it is important that you familiarise yourself with the marking grid in terms of right away across from promptness, okay, to relevance of content delivery. Okay, very important. Okay, and again, I've said it a number of times, I'll say it one last time, it's an academic piece of work. Okay, so this beware slide very much should be ever present, especially when you're starting off, okay, on this journey of posting online within forum and discussion. Okay, that you must be careful and must follow good academic practice. Okay, so absolutely without question, you do not cut and paste material from other sources. Okay, your posts are detected, okay, by plagiarism software. So the tutor, okay, the team at Learner Support, okay, can see a score for your posts within there. So it's absolutely a factor. Your tutor will guide you if there's very much, and it may then become a little stronger than guidance, okay, in terms of what's happening with your posts. If there's a high similarity index, if you're cutting and pasting from external sources. Okay, I can't say it enough, you absolutely must avoid that. If it gets to an excessive level, okay, and you've had a warning and you continue to cut and paste, okay, you're falling within the university category of plagiarism, which is a primary academic offence within your programme. Okay, so please avoid cutting and pasting and using other people's work without suitable and appropriate referencing to support and show the tutor and other readers where you got the article and the information from. Okay, so tutors are experienced, not only is the plagiarism software, but from their own experience, they can see if there are a number of signposts that this work has been taken from external sources, such as sudden changes in writing style. Okay, they might even recognise the article. Okay, I've had it before that people have actually plagiarised an article that tutors have written themselves. Okay, so I definitely would advise not doing that. Okay, especially that's an easy one that scientists to see. Okay, and just get to grips with the university. The university uses the Harvard referencing system, okay, which is an author year referencing system. But within that also is the plagiarism within the university. Not only do you have to reference, you can't use extended, okay, so it says here excessive length within the text. You can't just use verbatim, word for word, sections of work taken from other people and still reference and say, but it's not plagiarism because I referenced it. Okay, well, you're being assessed on your academic work, not what someone else has written and you've just referenced it. Okay, so that's a critical point, and it falls on me as University Link Officer to really highlight, the academic standards of expectation. Okay, so depending on other types of assessment modalities that fall within your module, okay, there are then a number of other areas that are looked at. Okay, if it's a group assignment, okay, there's the overall quality. Again, it's an academic piece of work. It's that you're going to be marked on the overall quality of the report, plus a multiplier to reflect your individual contribution. Okay, all the way from group leader, okay, to the social loafer. Okay, the social loafer, the person that just bubbled along and got carried along by the group. Okay, so across that, there's a multiplier effect to represent your contribution to that piece of work. Okay, there it's important to have a discussion early on with your tutor if you're concerned about others' contribution to an area. Usually that would be via the group leader, communicating with the tutor concerns. The tutor is constantly looking by viewing into the platform and seeing the interactions, okay, what is taking place within that module. So they will likely be aware across a spectrum of contributions to work. Individual assignment, okay, well it's very much specific on what the individual assignment is, but it's overall quality, and there could be specific elements that come together to give what that final mark is given for. We have a fantastic suite of types of individual assignment depending on the course, the module you've signed up to do. How is the reflective portfolio marked? Again, refer yourself to that individual presentation among the details of reflective portfolio. Okay, marked very much in a similar way to assignments, but with a reference to certain performance indicators specific to the reflective portfolio. Okay, such as purpose. Okay, is there evidence of reflective thinking, or a clear conclusion, and the processing, the model used of reflective practice within that. Okay, so it's an element you're going to be assessed on. So if you have little experience within the reflective portfolio, that's an area to have a look at the presentation, the information that's provided to you, okay, and then get a feel of what's going to be required within that reflective portfolio. Again, top tip from me, okay, is you're not leaving this to the end. It says reflective, okay, but you're continually reflecting as the process continues. Okay. So overall, across a module, how does all that come together in the marks you get? Okay, well, the elements of assessment are marked out of 100 and then weighted accordingly, as I detailed earlier, across those 4 key areas, okay, of where you'll get with the weight of contribution of those areas to your overall mark. Okay, so the module mark is a composite, okay, joining together of your contribution, your performance across those areas. At the university, this isn't learner or Diploma MSc, okay, so we're in partnership with the university, so it's university regulations at play here. A pass mark within the University of South Wales, okay, is equal to or greater than 40%. So you pass an element of assessment if you hit that threshold, 40%. Okay, because we're in postgraduate level 7, we use merit, pass, merit, distinction terminology. So a merit, okay, is 60 to 69% as your composite mark for a module, and a distinction is anything at or above 70%. Okay, so for modules, you're graded pass, merit, distinction, okay, across there. We have course directors, and the university has course leaders. So course directors very much are in charge of their courses, the academic, clinical, nature, purpose, role, performance of their courses within Learner, okay, and are linked in with Learner. A course leader at the university is very much an academically processor, okay, so picking up any queries and courses, passing them back to Learner. So your course director is key in terms of the suite of programs we run with Learner, okay, because their overall there is looking at the tutors that have been tutoring on their modules, okay, looking at the marks and overseeing how that process is taking place. Okay, marks and feedback, okay, need to, again, within the university, take place within a 20 working day. Okay, so that's some working days. So in the UK, okay, Saturday and Sunday aren't included in the working day. Again, that's University of South Wales. Okay, you will get a release of interim results, okay, following that period, following completion of module review. So you must provide a module review, module evaluation, and you will get your interim results. Again, academic process, university process, important to note that they are interim. Okay, your marks are only final after they're processed at the university, which is a key part of my role, linking with the link officer at Learner here, in terms of we have defined university examination boards that process your marks within there. Okay, and it's after that point that your marks are officially the marks you achieve within there. That only really gets to the point of when you're told you passed the course or not passed the course, or there's other elements. But it's important to note, marks are interim until they've been ratified by the University Examination Board. Okay, what support will you get? Okay, a whole host. I said right at the very start, okay, you get the double whammy. Okay, you're a learner, Diploma MSc student, and you're a USW student. It's a partnership. So you have a dedicated support team, okay, at Learner. That I have to say, I would point you, that's your first point of call. Okay, sometimes you have students directly contacting the university. Okay, you have it's a university of a significant thousands numbers of students. Okay, you could get lost in a university, especially as an international student just phoning into the university, not sure which department you need to speak to. Okay, directly liaise with the support team here. Okay, and they'll pick up. They then link you into the appropriate support process at the university if it's needed. Okay, but your first point of call must be to the support team at Learner MSc. Okay, a whole host of information on the website. Okay, your academic tutor, as I said, they're there to guide you on the academic process. Okay, you will do, if required, you absolutely will be supported by the University Student Support Services. It's just that will be very efficiently streamlined to the correct support department at the university you need if you liaise via Diploma's support team. Okay, library support, they're there for, okay, to support that. You're an online student, okay, in terms of access to specific resources and aspects there. You haven't got, it's important to note because feedback comes to me from the library as well, you haven't got a dedicated personal librarian. Okay, so a librarian is covering academic areas within the university, and because you fall within a particular faculty, online support as well. So sometimes within there is considered as a personal library support member. Okay, they will support you absolutely to their fullest support, but they're not your own personal library support. They will support you. Okay, but it's just a plea to remember that you're one of many thousands of students there. Again, questions that you may get, you use your learner support team for that, and we can filter specifics back to the university if required. And if there's anything about accessing a particular journal, absolutely that question can be picked up and supported by library support. Most importantly, within the forum, okay, is your own peer support. You're all starting off at the same time. A massive strength of the program is diversity of background, professional experience, clinical experience. Okay, utilise that support. Okay, the tutor group I mentioned is that if we have a very large course, on any course, but you can imagine if it's a very large course, okay, with a significant number of students coming in, okay, well that course gets broken down into smaller, okay, peer groups, okay, and then they have an individual tutor. So that's a tutor group. So sometimes on a course you may have 3-4 tutor groups if it's a very large course. Okay, so you'll be going through with a particular group of peers around you. Well, depending on the size of your course, there may be 2 or 3 other tutor groups going through, okay, all with different tutors. The key aspect is, as I already mentioned in my presentation, we've worked tirelessly in terms of consistency. So there are no differences in terms of the experience you get depending on which tutor group you're in. Okay, you're very much a consistent approach in terms of the activities, the support you get amongst those tutor supports. Okay, so in terms of being a University of South Wales student, okay, and I've said before, USW rules, regulations, okay, there are a number you fall within the rules and regulations, okay, but and all of the support processes you get. Okay, so like if you have a student complaint, for example, the last one on the list there, okay, you would refer that complaint in the first instance to the team here, student support team here at Learner, okay, and then if required, then that goes through to the university and follows the standard process for a student complaint. Okay, so that's one end of the extreme. Another end of the extreme, if there is an extenuating circumstance, okay, so life has thrown up challenges and gone away, there is a genuine extenuating circumstance of why you cannot complete a certain aspect of work by a certain deadline, okay, then there are extenuating circumstances procedure. Again, the team here at Learn are fantastic. They know the USW process and what's required, what documentation, what you'll have to do. So they'll take you through those initial stages, and then it will come through to myself and to my course leaders at the university, and we will action that accordingly. Okay. Second point on that list there, I've gone over it in previous aspects of my presentation. Okay. Always academic integrity, okay, so you fall within the university's plagiarism policy, rules and regulations, and the outcomes if you are deemed to have plagiarised within your work. So familiarise yourself with the requirements that are on you there. Okay, how do you get your results? Okay, well there is the hyperlink, okay, that's present there on the screen, okay, as it progresses through our university process and system, and then you've gone through a university academic board, okay, then results are released on that site there that you can access through the hyperlink. Okay, so and again, remember the timing. Okay, feedback is given to you within 20 working days. The team at Learner can tell you dates in terms of academic boards following which grades are released. Extenuating circumstances, I just touched upon it. There's slightly more details, probably the one we get a lot because we have a significant number of students and things happen. Okay, things happen and we need to utilise the extenuating circumstances procedure. Okay, as I said, it's designed to absolutely do that, support you, give you additional time, okay, to manage your workload because something has happened that you could not complete it. Okay, you need to apply for it. Okay, but it's designed to help students who, in a one end of the extreme, can't continue with their studies, or help students who need extensions to pieces of work. Okay, so I'll cover across those. Importantly, it's not designed to help with increased workloads. Okay, so an extenuating circumstance isn't just that you have, it was very busy at work one week and you've missed certain aspects amongst the discussion forum. Okay, but if there's a significant event, again, the team can talk you through what will be a significant event. If you have any questions about it, you must flag it up early. Again, they can guide you in terms of submitting and asking for that extension within the extenuating circumstances procedure. Okay, so examples there, quite significant: bereavement, severe illness. Okay, if you're severely ill, of course you can't do your work. You need an extension and guide you through the extenuating circumstances procedure. You don't be offended, you will be asked for evidence. Okay, that's just to ratify that it's genuine. That can be, if you're suddenly hospitalised, for example, Okay, we don't expect you to kind of, whilst you're, that can be taken care of after the event in terms of you being able to document, you know, that there was a significant aspect. It includes members of your family. Okay, especially if you have dependents, you're a carer. Of course, you can't continue to do your work, meet deadlines if something significant has happened. Okay, so my plea again is not, you know, to come straight to the university and launch that process. Okay, the team here at Learner need to know, you know, that there's something's going on, and then they can support you in terms of that process. Okay, ultimately, if events have caught up with you and you can't continue for whatever reason, okay, we have a suspension of studies procedure. Okay, details are within your student handbook. Okay, you're allowed once to suspend once for up to a year within that. Okay, now again, it may be that the event is just too great for you to come back quickly from that, but you can suspend. You apply for that. Okay, student support team. The advice shot is that if you like the support team based at the university, liaison will take place. Okay, application to suspend studies, and will ultimately come to me then at the university to sign off that. But you absolutely can. You're not expected. Okay, if the event's severe enough to simply just come back within a few weeks, you can suspend for a period of time. Okay, importantly, the last point there, okay, is when you intend to come back. Okay, well, how long is it going to take in terms of that suspension of studies? What we expect from you and what we hope you will do. Okay, that's an important aspect to finish my presentation on. Okay, absolutely, you must enjoy the course. You've made, as I said at the start, a significant commitment, time, financial, okay, balancing it with home and work commitments. Okay, an enjoyment factor there with the course you're doing, the reason why you wanted to do it in the first place, and the motivation to succeed. The enjoyment's going to drive you along that journey. Okay, be at this stage realistic. Okay, you may have thought about it during the application phase, but be realistic about the personal commitment required. Okay, it is going to take a commitment, okay, dedication from you to especially across the 6 weeks of intensity when the module's running, okay, to be fully engaged with that module. Okay, if there are issues, if something happens, use the support processes in place. Okay, most importantly, don't just drop off the radar. Okay, you will be contacted. We can see when you're online. We can see your activity. We can see your engagement. Okay, just contact the support team here to start the discussion of what might be going on. Okay, but again, a tip over the last 5-6 years: don't just try and disappear. Okay, speak early about that. Okay, that's that side. The other event is, if you're enjoying it, you know, go for it. Okay, maximise that enjoyment. Okay, maximise the motivation. Okay, and you will succeed within this program. Okay, we will succeed. Okay, we have vast experience in taking hundreds of students through this online learning experience. Other tips: develop a personal development plan. Okay, this dovetails nicely into your reflective element. Use it to get the most out of the course. Why are you doing the course? What do you want at the end of the course? What's your future aspiration? What's your goals? Where are you going? What's your direction of travel? Okay, so your own personal development plan. Okay, there's my point there about talking, communicating. Okay, answer your emails, log into the website, contact your tutor, contact student support. There's a whole host of digital media ways you can contact. Okay? But there's also phone. Okay, still available for you to phone in. Okay, email, social media, WhatsApp, whichever you need to do to contact the team. If you have difficulties, it's very, very important, as early as possible, notify the team here within student support. Mostly from me. Okay, really hope you enjoy the course. Can't wait to see you progress through the course, okay, and get the most out of the course. Thank you very much.
Okay. Hi, my name is Catherine Wildblood and I'm the Student Support Manager of Diploma MSc, and I'm going to give you a tour of Moodle, which is the online learning platform that you're going to be using while studying with us. Okay. So first of all, you're going to receive an email, which is from ourselves, and this will have your Moodle login details. Okay, this will have a username and a password. Now, if you can take that username, and as you can see, you're going to press login. You're going to use the link, which takes you to our site. You're going to press login, and you are going to go to where it is current student, which is on the right hand side. You're going to put your username in, like I've done, and then you're going to put in your password, and then you're going to press sign in. Okay, so that is going to take you to this page, which is the dashboard. All right, so if you just have a little look around, it will show you what you're enrolled in. Okay, for instance, we have your module, we have the instructions and resources, we have a learner library, we have reading resources and a social forum. However, I will show you these in more detail now. But if you just look to the right hand side, and you can see your student support team, that is myself at the top, and then there's Robin, Emma, Megan and Oshin. What you're able to do is actually schedule a call with us. So if you click on schedule a call, it will take you to our appointment system. Now, what this means is that you can book any time to talk to us. You can book a time that's convenient for you. You can do half-an-hour slots. You can always book more time than that. But it means that we are able to go through anything with you, whether it's enrollment, Moodle, understanding the course, anything at all. The student support are here to provide that service for you. So please do book an appointment if you have any questions at all. Just above that, you can always go to the FAQs and your student handbook to look if your question can be answered, but do feel free to contact us as well. Okay, so firstly, as you can see right here, it says last course access for me, but you will see your module 1. Now, this is for dermatology. I'm using this as an example. However, of course, the content will be different for all courses. So I'd like you to go into module 1. And here you will see the title of the first module, and it gives you a bit further information about the aim of the module. Just up here, you have your student handbook, which if we go in here, I would advise you to read this thoroughly before beginning the course. You're enrolled nearly a week before the beginning of the course, and this gives you time to go through Moodle, to read all the documentation that is available to you, to really understand and feel confident before beginning the course. It gives you the time to then contact us and ask any questions, and hopefully you'll be fully prepared for Monday, okay? But please do read your student handbook. As you can see, there's lots of information that is vital, and of course, as you will now be a student with the University of South Wales, we abide by all of their policies, all of their procedures, so it's imperative that you understand everything, and it will be much easier for you. Okay, so I'm going to come back here to the module homepage. Now, if you go a bit further down, you can see that there is the instructions and resources page. Now I'm going to click in here. So the instructions and resources, this page, you will be enrolled for the entire year. All this information is available to you all year round, and it's to help you with that. Each module opens up the day before it begins. So you'll have module 1, you'll have a 2-week break, then you go into module 2, and they will open up for you as the next module begins. However, you will always have access to the instructions and resources page, okay? You have term dates, so it has the module dates, your submission dates. What's really important here is the how you were graded part. So you have marking guidance, and this is exactly what the tutor will be using to mark you. So it is essential for students really to have an understanding of exactly what the tutors are looking for and how you're going to be marked. And this means that you'll be able to get the highest marks that you can get. And if you do need any further understanding of this, you can always contact us, or you can go to your tutor just to make sure that you do fully understand it. So as you can see, that is for the academic forum. However, there is a marking guidance for each component that you do throughout each module. Okay. So further down now, we have the library resources, and this is the learner library. Now I'm going to go through that with you in a bit more detail soon. However, I'm just going to go down here to the how-to guides. Now, you will have a module activity for each module. This will differ between each module. This can be an essay, this can be a poster, it might be a group project. It will differ each module, and so we've given you the guidelines for anything that will come up within the module. So if I just open up the essay guidelines, for example, you have everything from the length to the format, the layout, the general pointers, and this should be all the information that you will need. However, if you do need anything else, you can always come to student support, or you can always go to your tutor as well to ask the questions. So as I've mentioned, you have the instructions and resources page. This has how you're graded, the library, how-to guides, and then on the right-hand side, it just gives you the link again to your student handbook. Here's the FAQs, the university guide to Harvard referencing, and then again, it has the appointment schedule. So whenever you're on a different page, you can always just quickly book an appointment with us if you need to. So I'm just going to click on the FAQs here on the right-hand side under the heading Useful Links. It's quite important that you do take a look at these, because this has the information from, you know, how do I find my group? How do I use Turnitin? How do I access the library? And when you've got a lot of information and you've read the student handbook, sometimes it's the simple questions that we forget the answer to. So please do come here, and if you click on the question, it will show you, for instance, says how do I contact the student support team? You've got the email address, you've got our phone number, and you've got our student appointment schedule. So it's everything that you could need. But if you do need anything else, and if you do think that there isn't a question in the FAQs, please do let us know so that we can add it for other students to see also. Right, so I'm going to go out of the instructions and resources page. So now I've just come out of the instructions and resources page, and you'll see that the next link is the frequently asked questions, and that's what I've just shown you as well. So a little bit further down on the Module 1 homepage, you see a video from Professor Steve Davies, who is the Director of Courses. He gives you a welcome message and a little bit more understanding about what's required of you during the course. If you scroll down here, we have the module resources. Now, if you click on here, it's the reading resource, and this is a resource that will help you throughout the whole course. Even though we're on Module 1 at the moment, there's all the information here to help you throughout Module 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, if you're on the full postgraduate diploma. So if we scroll down, you can see you've got the course core material, and then you've got the module specific material here. So if we open this up, it will give you Module 1 here, and this is for further reading, and if you click on the arrow there, it will open up the document for you. So please do make yourself aware of everything that's available to you here, but of course just for Module 1 during Module 1. All right, so just come back out. Now I'm back out on Module 1 homepage again. Now the first thing that you are required to do, as well as of course making yourself, familiarising yourself with Moodle, one of the most important things that you have to do at the beginning is to enrol yourself with the University of South Wales. This is very, very important. This means that your results will go through an award board and will be processed, and you will be able to graduate. So we do require that students do it within the first 4 weeks. You must do it. However, to do it straight away is very important because it gives you access to the university resources, including their library. So as you can see on the page, this is an example. This is my account, so you will see the number 7 as an example. However, when you go onto this page, you will have your university student number. This is an 8-digit number, and it's unique to yourself, and throughout your entire study time with the University of South Wales, this will be your student number. If you ring up student support, and even if you contact the university, you'll be required to give this number. So please make sure you do have it written down somewhere else as well, please. And all you need to do is click the button to say start enrolment. You will be taken through. There will be a page where you just put in your user number, your date of birth, and then you will start the process. If you do have any problems at all, as it says just below here, please do contact our team and we will be able to help you. Even if that's putting you in contact with the university or assisting you in any way, we'll be able to help you. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is enroll with the university, but now I'm going to get on to what is required of you during each module. Okay, so if we scroll down a little bit, you can see here, this is the academic forum. Now, if you click in here, this is with 40% of the module, and this is where you will spend the majority of your time throughout the course. So each module is divided into 6 weeks. So we've divided the module, the academic forum, into the 6 weeks and the 6 weekly topics. So each week you will come in here. So week 1, you will click on the weekly topic, and as you can see, there's an example here. And so there's a discussion started, which will be started by your tutor. And all you need to do is click on the title of the discussion, and it will show you that it's unread. And then you can, just here with the blue button, you can press reply. You can always start a new discussion. However, the majority of the time, you're going to keep it within the point that your tutor has started, the discussion point. As mentioned, you will be able to reply to this message, and we can open up the menu bar. And as mentioned earlier, under administration, while you're on this forum, so for instance, now we're in the academic forum, you can subscribe to this forum. You can also just subscribe to this discussion as well. So it does completely depend on the level of detail that you want to subscribe to. But in Moodle, if you don't subscribe to these, it will always highlight when you have a new message. So either way, you will be notified. Okay. As I've mentioned, do contact student support if you'd like any further information on this. Okay, here we go. So I'm just going to come back out of here. So I've shown you the academic forum. And this is where you're going to spend the majority of your time, as mentioned. And if you just go further below, you can view the marking guidance, which we spoke about earlier, but it's there for you on the component just to go through and familiarise yourself with again. I'm just going to come back out of here. So beneath the academic forum, now you have the reflective journal, which is worth 10% of the module. So each module, you'll be expected to reflect on what you learn each week throughout the module. So the academic forum is split into 6 weeks. The same as a reflective journal, you're expected to reflect on each week on what you've learned and how you've implemented that into your practice. So if we go in here, you have lots of information here. So what is a reflective journal? What do I have to do? Tips to get good marks. You've then also got the video from Dr. Ruth Davis as well to give you further detail into what's expected of you. And then you will click on the reflective journal just underneath here. And it's not open yet, but when it is, you will see the button add submission. You just add your week's submission of what you want to reflect on, and you save the changes. When you come back to it, you edit the submission. There are instructions in here, and then your tutor will be able to leave you feedback below, and this should be weekly as well, as long as you're updating your portfolio weekly, your reflective journal, sorry. So I'm going to come out of here. And then, like on all components, just at the bottom, you have the marking guidance again for the reflective journal. And this shows you how to get the best marks, how to achieve them. So I'm going to come out of here again, and we're back onto the module 1 page. Now, in each module, you're going to have a module activity which is worth 20%. I'm just going to click in here. This, because the academic forum, you are updating this weekly, participating within your group and your tutor weekly. Your reflective journal, that is to be updated weekly, and this submits as you update it. The module activity, however, needs to be submitted at the end of the module. So we have, as you can see here, it tells you when the assignment is due in, and it gives you a little countdown. So it just reminds you that the work does have to be submitted. And it will let you know when, from the start of the module, so next Monday, it will be available for you to view what the actual activity is. There are many different activities. It could be, as I mentioned earlier, an essay, it could be a group report, it can be a poster. So this will differ from module to module. So you will have the instructions, you may have an activity forum if it's a group of you and you've got to collate all the data together and you've got to be able to communicate with each other. You will have a draft submission as well. You may have a draft submission if it's got to go to the tutor to be reviewed. And then you will have the activity submission area, which is, as it says, you have to submit it at the end of week 6, at the end of the module. And it lets you know when it's due in. And again, at the bottom of that, it has the marking guidance. That again is to show you how to achieve the best possible marks. So I'm coming back out again onto the Module 1 homepage. And then last but not least, we have the end of module exam, which is worth 30% of the module. At the end of each module, you will have an exam. It's 1 hour. It opens on the first day of the last week of the module. This is the same every single time, and it's open for 10 days. So at the end of the module, you have 3 extra days to be able to submit your work, get everything in it, and then have 3 days to be able to revise on everything in the academic forum, and then have time to be able to complete the exam. Please note that once you click on Start Examination, it will begin when it's open, of course. So you must be in a setting where you have no distractions, where you have good internet connection, and please don't do it also on the Moodle app or a smartphone or a tablet. Please make sure that you're on a laptop just in case of anything. And we do advise students that if you do have any problems whatsoever, contact us straight away with any evidence, because we do look into everything. We can see all logs, and it just helps us to be able to help you if you do have any problems while taking the exam. Okay, so I'm just going to come back out of here. So I've been showing you the Module 1 homepage, and just to summarise, you have the student handbook here, you have a link to the instructions and resources, frequently asked questions, you have the dermatology, for different subjects it will differ of course, but you have the reading resource which shows you the content of all the modules. Your first activity to complete is to complete enrolment, and then just below that we have the components that you are required to complete during each module of the course. So although it will seem quite a shock at first what you've got to complete, as soon as you master module 1, it's then the same format for all the other modules. So any questions that we can help you with, anything at all, please, student support are here to make you feel completely comfortable and make sure that you understand everything, because module 1 is very important because they do run the same. So as soon as you understand it, it becomes much more simple after that. Okay. So I am going to take you now to the Learner Library. So if we go back to, you can find this by going to your dashboard, and then you will see Learner Library, USW, and if you click to access, this will take you to our library. As you can see, you have, first of all, in the first box, a guide to literature searching, guide to referencing, guide to plagiarism, and poor academic practice. Now, if you open up each of these, it has further information to help you with all of this. If you open up the referencing, you go to more details, it will take you to further documentation, and then we have further understanding here of what plagiarism is. And it really won't be tolerated by the university, so it's very, all students need to understand exactly what to do and what not to do. Okay, and your tutors will be there to guide you. However, it is up to students to really read what is available to them before the course begins and understand that completely. Right, so I'm going to drop that back up. Now, if you'd like to access the university library, this will take you to it. Please be aware that you must have enrolled with the university before you're able to access this. So you must complete the enrolment, and even though that's on the Module 1 homepage, it again is down here. You have your university student number and the university enrolment button, and that will take you to it. As soon as you completed enrolment, you will then be able to access the library. So you have lots of documents here. So this is the library homepage. If I click on here, it will take you to it. Okay, there's many things here. There's a lot of information that is available to you, but it's understanding how to use it. So then you have getting started page, distance learner resources. It can seem like quite a lot of information at the beginning. So there is a 24/7 live chat with the librarians at the university, and you can also book an appointment similar to ourselves. You can also book an appointment with a librarian to go through understanding any of the resources that is available to you. Sorry. Then we have some more resources here from the university: extenuating circumstances, and disability and dyslexia service as well. So as I've mentioned, once you are logged in, once you are enrolled with the university, you will be able to use the resources, which includes the library. Right. Okay, so if we scroll a little bit further down, that gives you access to the university library, which there are so many resources available to you. However, we also have given you here search facilities in order to find online articles. So as you can see, there's many resources. If I keep scrolling, there are many places for you to search. And there's also a key here, so you can see if it's a book search, full text, abstract, and pre-registration as well. Okay, so this is our learner library with the university. And on the right hand side, you can also see that here's your student support team. If you ever need to go through anything, we're just there to book an appointment. Right, so the last thing that I'm going to take you to is if we come back out to the dashboard again, which, as I've mentioned, you can always click on the menu. Here we go, and you can click dashboard. And if I scroll down here, I can see that I am enrolled into a social forum. Okay, so now we've come to the social forum. So here, this place, it's important for you to understand, this is for any non-academic queries. The course director or tutors are not enrolled in here. It is only student support and all the students from your particular course. So that means that although there may be, say, 5 or 7 groups in the dermatology course, every single student, you'll all be able to speak to each other in here. Please also be aware that there are about approximately 15 students in each group throughout the module, and this may change. So it's really good for you all to say a welcome to each other and get to know each other, because although you may not be in a group with them for module 1, you may be in a group at another point in the course, and it gives you a place to be able to speak to each other. But if you do have any urgent queries, please don't ask them in here. Please do contact us straight away, because you'll just get a quicker response probably. So it's better to just give us a call, book an appointment, or send an email to us if it's anything urgent. Okay, so you've got the social forum there. And as I've mentioned, you have your module 1 page, you have the learner library, and you also have the dashboard, which is where you can find everything. So let me just go back to click on your profile. I'm going to go back to dashboard. Okay, so just to summarize, I'm just going to come back here and click on the dashboard. Here we go. So firstly, at the top of the page, for instance, as an example here, it has a message for our students from module 4, and it's letting them know as a reminder that their module is going to begin on Monday, the same as when your course begins. We put information there, for instance, say that the exam is open, say that there's going to be a bank holiday and student support are not available. We will always send you out emails. However, we'll always put this information on here as well, just as a little reminder. But what you can do is just click the X, and then that will disappear then. So just to summarize, it will show you the last course accessed, which for me was the social forum. You can always click to resume and go back in here. So I've shown you the social forum, which is for non-academic queries. That is for everyone in your subject. So as an example here, we have dermatology, every single student in there, and you can speak to each other. Okay, ask questions to each other, anything, it can be sociable. Then we have the instructions and resources, and this is, you're enrolled the entire year. This has documentation that you should look at before beginning the course. During the course, you then have the reading resources and the library as well, which contains the Learn Library and the University of South Wales. And have a look at them before you begin. And then also we have the dermatology course, which of course is where you will be spending the majority of your time on the course. And the first thing to do is to enrol with the university, so please remember to do that. Now on the right hand side, again, just to reiterate, you have student support, which you can schedule a call with us. Underneath you have a calendar here, just to remind you about submission deadlines. Although this information is everywhere, it's just extra here, so it lets you know the exam is opening that day. You have to submit certain components, and then the exam closes. It lets you know upcoming events, and then also down here is just our social forum as well for Diploma MSc. So that's it from me. As I've said, student support are here to answer any queries at all. It doesn't matter how small you may think they are. It's really, really important that you do feel confident and comfortable starting the course and that you do understand everything. So we look forward to speaking to you soon. Good luck.
In October of 2018, a past student who is now one of our newest tutors came to visit us in Cardiff. We jumped at the opportunity to meet with Joel and introduce him to some of the people who have shaped his journey along the way.
It's been a very exciting couple of hours, or number of hours I've been driving around from one part of town to another, interacting with the founding director, Dr Steve Davies, and getting to meet some of my colleagues from the diploma course, and also my tutor, Dr Davies. Diploma MSc has designed the program in such a way that it really simulates what an on-campus education is like, just without the physical aspect. I believe that it empowers us academically and professionally, and gives us the opportunity to improve the quality of our clinical practice in general. The social platform on the Moodle platform really creates an opportunity for the tutors and the students to interact and get to know each other. We also share our own personal experiences, and that makes it, in as much as it's an online education, it also gives it a more realistic feel. And for me, getting to meet with the Diploma MSc staff and a few of my tutors and colleagues has consolidated that, social experience for me, because you can have the best online relationship, but when you meet a person, it's very different. With regards to being a tutor, I found that to be a really great honor for me, because when I completed the course, I never for a second thought that I would be qualified to teach other people myself. But I realize now that having gone through the course probably makes me an ideal candidate to share my knowledge. I've been where they are, and I know how it can be, especially in the first few modules. Well, for anyone who is considering doing a postgraduate diploma with the Diploma MSc, I would say it's a very sensible decision for that person. The postgraduate diploma has given me an opportunity to apply most of the learning from our mainstream medical education with research and evidence-based practice in my daily practice in the clinics and on the ward. It's really a great experience for me, and I'm very glad I had the opportunity.
I'm Dr. Shashi Panikar. I'm a physician from India. I'm now a diabetes specialist. What happened was my interest in diabetes increased when I saw that many of my patients had diabetes. And to help them, I wanted to do a specialized course. Working on the internet was easy for me, and the learning process, I think, is probably even superior to an in-campus teaching process, because you're online every day, you don't miss any classes, there is no distance, there is no travel, there's no conveyance problem, and it's a very good way of learning. As a very busy person, I think this is the only alternative that would have worked. I couldn't possibly go into a campus or to another country and spend time there. This, while I'm practicing, while I'm doing my daily work, I put in a few hours every day, and this worked out very well. I feel that the educational quality is very good in UK. I feel that the skill and knowledge that I have learned would help my patients, because this has been a practical on-the-spot learning which has helped me a lot.
My name is Pratisha Dash. I'm a doctor. I'm working with Enhanced Clinics in New Delhi as a hair transplant surgeon. Last year I did my course in PG Diploma in dermatology. The course that I did was of very high quality. I really liked that we could work in our own pace, and as doctors we're very busy. We work around 8 to 12 hours on an average day, and sometimes more, maybe 14 hours in a day. So it allows you to study on your own time, whether it's early mornings or late nights. I found that the quality of teaching was exceptionally high because all the teachers were from different parts of the world, and we were being trained by specialists in each of the specific fields. I think it will benefit my career, definitely. It makes you feel confident as a practitioner.
The course was brilliant. Found it really enjoyable, had loads of knowledge coming out at the end of it. Found it really interesting, found it really good to work with. It was part-time. I could work it in my own time because I combined it with working full-time and being a full-time mother to 4 children. It's very important to be able to do it online and fit it in with daily life. It will give my career satisfaction a big boost. It already has. I have been promoted to a clinical nurse manager since I started the course, and I'm hoping to advance on to either clinical nurse specialist or advanced nurse practitioner. Most certainly I have a better insight into all endocrinology issues, and it has given me a lot of confidence. I've studied a subject that I actually love and hold dearly to my heart. So to be able to go into work and to know that I know what I'm talking about to my patients and to my colleagues gives me a real confidence boost, and I get this feedback also from my colleagues that I work with.
Welcome to the presentation about using library resources at the University of South Wales. My name is Wallace and I'm one of the faculty librarians at the university. I look after your courses, so that means I liaise with your academics to make sure that we've got resources for you. It also means that I'm here to support you while you're on the course. So if you have any questions after today, you're welcome to contact me, and my contact details are on the slide. The university has 4 physical libraries, and if you live close enough to be able to use these, all you'll need is your USW student card. That is your library card as well. The opening hours of each library is available on the website, and for those of you, and I appreciate this is most of you, who won't be able to use the USW libraries in person, there is a scheme called Sconnell Access. Sconnell Access allows you to use the facilities and borrow books from other university libraries in the UK. The website address is www.sconnell.ac.uk/Sconnell Access. If you then select Distance Learner and University of South Wales on the homepage, you'll see a list of participating universities local to you. Simply fill in the form and send it through, and you'll get a card to use your local library. It is of course possible though to be an active library user without actually setting foot in a physical library, as so many resources are available online, and it's going to be the online resources that I'm focusing on today. To use the online resources, you will need to set up a password. If you haven't already done this, then go to the main USW webpage and click Login. You'll then be prompted to set up a password using the self-service account administration. You can also use this to change your password at any time. And to log into all of the library resources, your username is simply your 8-digit student number and then the password that you have set up. Reading lists can be accessed in Moodle. Some links, those which are freely available online, can be accessed directly from your reading list. Other links, those which are behind the paywall of university resources and ones that we subscribe to, will take you in to find it. Once you're in Find It, you'll need to log in. The link is up here, and once you're logged in, you'll see your name in the top right hand corner, and then you'll be able to access the resource by clicking on the link in the middle of the page. While your reading lists are great for the core resources, you will be expected to supplement this with your own reading around the subject areas. So what we're going to do now, we're going to have a little look at the library website. We're then going to look at using Find It to search for a book. This is the library website. It can be accessed via Moodle or just by Googling USW Library. The main box in the middle of the page is Find It, and this is where you'll find all of our resources, and I'll show you that in more detail shortly. First of all, I'm just going to walk you through this page. So on the side here, you've got a link to chat. If you have any questions relating to library services or things are not working when you're using them, there's a chat service available 24/7. Click on the link and type in the box to start a conversation with myself or one of my colleagues. Underneath that, you've got the book an appointment link. So if you want to make an appointment with me, if you click there and go through to Lou, you'll get a list of dates and times that I'm available. If there's nothing there that suits you, just give me an email instead, and appointments can be booked in person or via Skype or via email. Underneath that, we've got the A to Z of library services. Lots of useful information in there if you've got a question relating to the library. And in the bottom of the page, we have some useful information about different aspects of library services. So we've got a borrowing link here. This tells you all the information about returns, renewals, requests, so on and so forth. So if you are going to be using the physical library, familiarise yourself with that information first. You've got a range of useful guides under the library guides link. Here you'll see guides to find it, subject-specific guides. Really important, you've got the USW Harvard referencing guide. You will be expected to reference your assignments in USW Harvard. There's a getting started guide for all of the basic stuff that I've gone through today. Guide to Bob, which is our online TV and radio service. Lots of useful television content and available in the UK. Information about different aspects of library services and information here about research. So there's guides here how to research, a Google Scholar, and lots of really helpful stuff. You've also got the contact information here, and under part-time, at distance and partners, we have a guide to distance students. If you click on that, you'll see relevant information for those of you based in the UK and those of you based outside of the UK. One thing just to mention is the Wi-Fi. We're part of a global Wi-Fi network service called Eduroam. So to log into it, it's your student number at southwales.ac.uk and then your normal university password. It's a worldwide Wi-Fi network, so if you do use universities over the globe, you should be able to pick up the Eduroam network. Now I'm going to look at searching for books in Find It. Find It, the box in the middle of the page, allows you to search USW's collections. Either put your keywords in here or click on the link to Find It to go directly in. Once in Find It, make sure that you sign in using the link at the top of the page. You'll then see your name in that top corner. And what that means is you'll be able to access everything that you should be able to, and also you'll be able to use the full functionality of Find It. Type your search terms into the box. And you can choose at this point to search everything, which is absolutely everything, all of the books and all of the journals, libraries, which is the titles of the books and the titles of the journals, or journal articles, which is the full text of all of the journal articles. Because I'm looking for a book, I'm just going to refine my search to libraries. And you can see on this left-hand side there are some refining features here, so you can refine it to a particular library, you can refine it by date, And more importantly, if you're an online student, you can refine it to just those books that are available electronically. We do try and buy all of your core books electronically, so hopefully you'll be able to find many of them within Find It or via your reading list. However, unfortunately, not everything is available electronically, so there may be some books that we aren't able to get hold of, in which case you will need to source them from elsewhere. In this instance, I'm just going to refine it to full text online, and I'm going to choose this top one here. And if you follow the links then, that will take you into the item record. On this page here, you'll see some useful stuff. You see a permanent link, so if you are going to be needing to get back to it. You can also get a citation, which I mentioned earlier, you will be expected to reference in USW Harvard. This is a normal Harvard citation, so you will need to adapt it to USW Harvard, but it has got all the information that you need to do USW Harvard referencing. You can also email it to yourself, and you can also add things to your favourites by using the pin at the top, and I'll go into more detail about that shortly. To access the book, there's a link here. Click that, that takes you away from Find It into the page of the ebook provider. This one comes from somewhere called Dawson Era. You don't need to worry about that, that's just where we've bought it from. What you're looking for is an icon to either download it or to read it online. All books will have one, if not both of those options. If you read it online, you'll see it opens the book exactly the same as the print version. Go through the pages, you can go through the contents, you can search within the book and get a little bit of context. You can write notes. You can also cite a copy and print up to 10% or one chapter. So if you are going to be referencing this in an assignment, you can just copy and paste directly in. If you try and do more than a chapter or 10%, you'll get a copyright warning message. If you haven't used ebooks before, good idea just to have a play around with them, get used to navigating them, get used to reading them on screen. Hopefully you'll find them as straightforward as we do. I'm now going to look at using Find It to discover journal articles. Before we look at looking at journal articles, I do want to talk a little bit about search strategy. So before you start any assignment, it's a good idea to have a little think about it. What are you writing? Are you writing a report? Are you writing an essay? How many words is it? Because the more words, the more references you're going to need. Also, how much do you know about the topic? If you don't know very much, you might want to read some of the core textbooks before you start searching for journal articles to enable you to get effective keywords. And your keywords are the most important part of your search strategy. The better your keywords, the better your results are going to be. To break it down, don't enter whole assignment titles into the search engine. Pick out a handful of keywords and then brainstorm any related ones that you can think of. For example, if you were looking at teenagers, you'd also want to use adolescent and young person to bring back relevant results. Think about broader and narrower terms. Think about different spellings and think about different terminology. Just spend a few minutes brainstorming your keywords before you start searching. It will save you a lot of time in the long run. And what we have on this slide is just a few examples of things you might want to consider. Also consider your search boundaries. Are you interested in a specific geographical area, a particular time period, or are you just looking to keep it as current as possible? And which group of the population are you looking at? Once you've got your keywords, you want to consider how you're going to search. This is a link to the library's research guide, which includes a page on searching techniques. The link is up here, libguides.southwales.ac.uk/research. And this includes things like Boolean logic, so the and the or and the not, truncating words to find different endings and searching for phrases and so on and so forth. Have a good look at this guide before you start searching and consider using these searching techniques to enable you to search more effectively and efficiently, and have this at your side when you're doing your searches. Once we've considered our keywords and our searching techniques, then it's time to look for some journal articles. In Find It, you can refine your search to articles here. I would always click on Advanced Search because that gives you a few more options in terms of putting your keywords in, and then pop in your keywords. So I'm going to look for adolescent or teenager or child, and I'm going to look in the title field because I want that to be core to my article, and then I'm going to pop in type 2 diabetes. And I'm going to do that as a phrase. If you look in the Guide to Searching Techniques, it will explain that in there. I'm also going to search. I'm going to refine that to the last 5 years because I want to keep it nice and current, and click search. And you'll get a list of results then. We've got 59. There are refining features down this left-hand side, so you can refine it by subject, you can refine it to specific journal titles, you can also refine it to those that have been peer-reviewed, different functionality there for you. And this is, I just want to elaborate a little bit on the favourites. So you'll notice that every record has got a pin by it. If you click that pin, it saves it's your favourites area. Your favourites can be accessed at any point in time by clicking the big pin at the top of the page. And you'll see here a list of everything that I've got in my favourites. Definitely worth anything that you use, just popping it in your favourites, and you know then that you will always be able to get back to it. When you've come across a journal that you want to look at, if you click on the title, that will take you into the item record, just like with the book. So you've got the permanent link and you've got the citation, and just like with the electronic book, there is a link away from Find It into the journal article this time instead of the book, and a link to it there. So here we have the whole journal article. When you're in a journal article, if you do Control and F, it gives you a little search box, so you can look for your keywords within the article then and work out whether or not it's going to be worthwhile you reading it. You've of course got the abstract here to have a little look at as well. Find It, as a resource discovery tool, searches all of our collections and is a great starting point for any assignment. It cross-searches all of the individual databases we subscribe to. This is things like CINAHL, Medline, Cochrane, things that you will probably have used before. You may want to search these individually in addition to Find It for a number of reasons. Firstly, the databases allow you to refine your search more thoroughly. Secondly, the databases search a discrete range of subject-specific resources. These may offer you a more manageable range of relevant results than Find It, which cross-searches everything that university has. And thirdly, Find It only searches our full-text collections, and in the databases you'll find other things not in our collections that are relevant to your assignments. To access the databases, first check that you're logged in. If you're logged in, click Find Database at the top of the screen, and from the A to Z list you can choose a subject that's relevant to you. So I'm going to go for nursing. What you'll see then is the core database is highlighted at the top in yellow, along with some more general ones at the bottom. Each database has got a short description along with some identifiers, so you should be able to work out whether or not it's relevant to your subject. When you found one that you think is useful, in this case I'm going to have a look at CINAHL, click on the title, and that takes you away from our web page and into the database itself. If you haven't seen CINAHL or a database before, you'll notice here a lot more search functionality than we've got in Find It. Not all of them databases will have all of these options, but they will all have some additional options. Lots of the databases also have their own inbuilt thesauruses, so as soon as you start typing, it gives you suggestions for things that you might want to be looking for, and also suggests alternative keywords. I'm just going to refine my search to title and click search. You can refine your search by date, so we're going to refine it to the last 5 years. And you see here you can also refine it to all the things we discussed earlier, but also you can refine it to academic journals. You'll notice in the database, whereas in Find It everything had a link, some of these have got a full text link. So this one here has. And others haven't. And if there isn't a link to the full text, that doesn't mean we haven't got it. That just means we haven't got it within our CINAHL subscription. So the next thing you would need to do is check Find It, either by clicking the check Find It for full text link, or if there isn't one of those available, just copy the title and paste that into the search box on Find It. And if we search Find It for this journal article, we'll find out then whether or not we've got it through one of our other collections, and we haven't. If we did have it through a different provider, there would be a link here. If there isn't one available, there is a link to the British Library request form. You can do 5 free British Library requests per academic year. So anything that you want that we haven't got, just click on the link, fill in the form, send it through, choose digital delivery, and we'll have a copy emailed to you within a couple of days. 5 for free, after that it's £3 a pop. Just something to note quickly though, before you do that, it is always worthwhile just copying the title and popping it into Google Scholar. Lots of content is indexed on Google Scholar, and you do find things like ResearchGate, university archives, charity archives, so sometimes you can find things on Google Scholar that you can't find in Find It. So I just mentioned Google Scholar. Google Scholar is a good supplement to your Find It and database searches, as it indexes university and charity repositories as well as many other sites. And you can set it up to work with Find It by using library links. If you go into the Scholar settings and library links and then just highlight the box that says Find It at University of South Wales and save it, then any searching that you do in Google Scholar if we've got the article through Find It, there'll be a link to it. Just see here, it's also finding links from other places. So these are things that are not on Find It, where the article is freely available to you. The other nice thing that Google Scholar does, it gives you citations. So any article that you find, you can have a look and see if it's been cited by any newer articles. And then if you click on that link, it tells you what those articles are. Definitely worthwhile having a look. Often they can find other stuff that's useful, and also you can check and see if an article that's a little bit older is still being cited currently. So finally, thanks very much for listening. I know I've covered a lot of information in a short space of time, but the content will be available in Moodle for you to rewatch and consult when you're searching on your own, and please don't hesitate to get in touch with the library or me. Good luck on your course.
Okay, now we're going to look at the reflective journal. You'll remember that each module has 4 elements of assessment, and the reflective journal is one of those elements. And you'll also should be getting the message now that the assessment here is threaded through the whole course. So I just want to talk a little bit about reflective practice and how you do that in a reflective journal. You may say, look, I've been qualified for 15, 20 years. I'm quite experienced. But what we're doing in reflective practice is saying that just because you're experienced doesn't mean to say that you've got it nailed. It might be that since you qualified 15 years ago, research has found a better way of doing things. It might be that you could do the same thing quicker or better. There may be new technology that you could use. Or it might be something internal. Maybe you're burnt out and you're fed up with people and your attitude could do with a bit of improvement. Or maybe you could understand your client or your patient, and that might affect the way you interact. So there are lots of reasons why reflection is a good practice for professionals. You may say, I'm not really into this touchy-feely, soft, modern mumbo-jumbo stuff. But what I would say is, this is not new, right? Confucius, many years ago, said that we may learn wisdom by reflection, which is the noblest way of learning. Or you can learn it by imitation, see one, do one, teach one. Or by experience, which is the bitterest. And we want to try to prevent you having bitter experience, but to use this whole process, both the learning on the course and in your practice, to improve your practice. So the next 2 slides provide some definitions of reflection. It's one of those things in professional practice, and for many healthcare professionals, they have to reflect on their practice as part of their revalidation of their professional qualification. I'm not going to read everything that's on the screen, you can read it yourself, but reflection is basically thinking about what you do, the impact your actions have on other people. And of course, all these slides are going to be on the Moodle website anyway, so you can look at them at your leisure. So in reflection, you're looking at a situation and you're thinking about it. The doyen of reflective practice is a guy called Donald Shun, and I don't know how many of you are aware, but this reflective practice idea was first tried out in airline pilots, where they had near misses, and they got the airline pilots to think about how they could do things differently. And then it was translated into teaching and healthcare, and so that's where the concept has come from. So reflection is a way that you can turn your experience into meaningful learning. It's important because it makes you, or it gives you the opportunity to examine issues related to your course. It may enable you to look at a clinical incident or something that's happened in your professional practice. So it's partly professional, but there is a personal element to it. It makes you explore some of the ways in which you react to certain situations, and some of those will be culturally bound for all of us. None of us exist in a vacuum. We all have different religious backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, different educational backgrounds, and all of those have made us the person that we are. Some of the issues that we've developed, that we've confronted in practice, have affected the way our future practice happens. So what does that mean in terms of the course? The reflective journal is 10% of each module mark. Okay? And the reflective journal is something that we want you to contribute to throughout the whole of the course. So we will be expecting you to write in the journal every week. But we want you to do it in a structured way, to structure your thinking so that you get something more out of it. One of the differences between the reflective journal and the academic forum, where you're going to be discussing scenarios or cases, is that in the journal you're going to write personally. So whereas in academic writing we would expect you to say, Smith and Jones said this paper suggests that, in your reflective journal you will say, this is what happened to me today and this is how I felt about it. Now I know that for some of you that's a bit intimidating, but that's what we want you to do. It might be that you refer to objective elements. It might be that you say, I'm starting this module and this is an area I feel confident in. Or, this is a module that, about a subject area I don't know much about and therefore I feel more fearful. So you're describing what you're talking about, but you're also talking about how you feel about it, because that's going to influence the way you approach it. Some of the reasons why we want you to do this is for you to look into yourself, to think about your own beliefs and your own values. Where has that come from? To understand your own strengths and weaknesses. Maybe to acknowledge some of your fears, to not acknowledge some of the ways you react in certain situations, and to challenge some of the assumptions on which you base your actions. Think about whether there are ways in which you could act better and identify areas for possible improvement. What happens when you're faced with an aggressive patient? Now, some of us back into a corner and back down. Some of us come out fighting. Why do you react the way that you do? Think about how you do react. Think about a scenario you've had in practice where a patient has been difficult with you, or you've had a difficult consultation. What makes it difficult? Why was it difficult for you? How did you tackle it? What could you do better? How do you react in a stressful situation? And that's what we're asking you to do in this journal. So you'll see now that there isn't actually a right and a wrong in this. This is about your personal journey. We ask you to do this in a structured way because it will help you, because you might kind of freeze and think, I don't know what to do. And the sorts of things that we're asking you to reflect on are the learning that you're doing on the course, perhaps something in your personal situation which is related to the learning that you're doing, or in your clinical or practice experience that is related to the learning that you are doing. So we're going to give you now 3 possible structures to help you with your thinking. And there's no right or there's no wrong, but what we would say is choose one and say which one you're going to use so that the tutors understand what you're doing. This might vary depending on your professional background. If you're a medic, you might be familiar with a critical incident report, and therefore you might feel more comfortable with this. So what you would do is describe what's happened. Patient collapsed in front of me. Explain why it was significant to you. How did you feel about it? What were your concerns at the time? What impact did it have on you as a person? I presume that this will be in the context of the learning that you're doing at the time in the module. And maybe what did you learn from it? What could you have done differently? Did you realise that there was a gap in your knowledge? If that's true, you might go away, do the reading, and then provide the references for the reading that you've done. So this is enhance my learning. When the patient collapses in front of me the next time, I will do this. Or this worked well. Why did it go well? What did I do that was good? That's equally valid. For those of you that are nurses, I've got a feeling there's a transition here. No? No. Yeah. This is Gibbs' reflective cycle. The nurses amongst you will be familiar with this. Again, it's describing what has happened, how you felt about it, what was good and bad about the experience, what sense can you make of the situation, What else could you have done? And what action plan, what would you do differently if it happened again? A student kindly gave us permission to put their posting up. I'll leave that there for you to read, but it's somebody who's used Gibbs' reflective model. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it was seen as quite a good example. We do tend to find that the different professional groups have different strengths and weaknesses in the different assessment things. This is a generality, and I don't wish to stereotype anybody, but on the whole, the nurses are more familiar with reflective practice, the doctors are better at the multiple choice questions at the end. And, you know, we all bring strengths and weaknesses to this course. You'll all feel more confident in some areas than others. But that's partly why we make it the combination of marks at the end of the module that's the important thing. And again, it goes on. I suspect that you will relate to some of this as the course goes on. So it might be that you're asked to be a leader for a group activity, and you might want to reflect on that, how you feel about that. Do you feel intimidated or do you feel empowered? What's it like getting people who are, some of your group are over enthusiastic, some of those are laggards and you can't get them to engage. Those are some of the struggles that you might have that you might want to reflect on. It will give you a feeling for what it's like being a team leader, what it's like to take a leadership role. Also might give you some sympathy for the tutors as well. And finally, a third alternative, this is Borton's framework, very similar really in their structure. First of all, there's a description of something, and then you're reflecting on it. So what? Now what? What happened? What am I going to make of this? What can I do to make the situation better? So 3 possible alternatives for you. However, I'm being realistic here. Life kicks in. Whenever you want to do something, you think, I've always got other things to do, I'm too tired. And so what we're saying is that it would be sensible for you to set aside time to do this. How do you make reflection happen when you haven't got to sit down at a particular time? Think about this at the start of your course now. Choose a suitable time. Choose what model, what structure you're going to use for your reflection. And just be honest about that. Some suggestions to get you going. Why don't you reflect on today? Make that your first journal entry. How do you feel about the start of this course? Do you feel excited? Do you feel terrified? Do you feel a mixture of both of those things? Neither are right or wrong, but you're being honest about the way you're feeling. This journal is going to be seen by you and your tutor. This is not shared with everybody else, you'll be relieved to know, so you can be more honest about the way you're feeling. You might want at the start of the module to look at what you're trying to achieve in the module and see how you're feeling about that. But as I say, it might be that something comes out in practice that you want to think about. So, if you're thinking about today, you can describe what the day was like for you. I got lost on the way here and I was so stressed by the time I get here I couldn't think about anything. How you felt about it. Oh, how exciting to meet maybe the student support team who I've emailed but haven't seen in the flesh. What was good and bad about the experience? Not sure that I want to read some of that, but important for us to know the good and the bad. What sense are you beginning to make of it? Are your anxiety levels reduced by the end of today, or are they worse? What could you have done differently? Could you prepare differently? Could you learn differently? And how can you learn to do something different next time? I've just put this in here. It'll be on the website. This is the criteria that the tutors look at when they're looking at your reflective journal. It's only guidance, and it's not scored particularly, but it just gives you an idea of what the tutor's looking for in terms of maximising your marks. So thinking about today, I think I've covered some of those. Did you set yourself goals for today? How do you feel now? How do you rate your current levels of awareness, energy, motivation? How are you approaching the course? Have you been sent on the course by your manager, or do you feel that this is your dream come true to do this course? What personal insights have you gained today? Not just what have you learnt about yourself that actually you might really take to online learning, or that you need to make contact with other people so that you can feel engaged. And how are you feeling at the end of the day? So, just a reminder that we're not looking for right or wrong answers, but for self-awareness. We're not expecting for your thoughts to stay set in concrete. We expect them to change as you go through the course. As you become, perhaps as you relax into getting familiar with the hoops that you have to jump through, it might be that you can concentrate more on the content. And so you're using the journal then to chart your changes. So we'd expect it to change as the course goes on. So I'm just going to leave you at the end of this session now with a verse from a Michael Jackson song. And use the course to examine your own personal and professional practice. What I would say is, the more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it. And I really hope you're going to enjoy the journey. Thank you very much.
Hello everybody, and good morning or good afternoon or good evening, whatever time it is of the day, wherever you are in the world. Perhaps I should start by introducing myself. As you can see from my slide, my name is Simon Williams. I'm currently a lecturer at the University of Wales Trinity St David, where I work 2 days a week. I also work for the Iron Bevan University Health Board in their weight management service in a research and evaluation role. And as you can see from the third line beneath my name, I'm also a course tutor on the Postgraduate Diploma and MSc in Obesity and Weight Management. So as you can see from my introductory slide, what I'd like to talk to you all about basically is using the evidence base to try and achieve excellence within the course that you've chosen to follow. Now, I know that some of my colleagues, Dr. New and Dr. Ruth Davis, have spoken to you previously about various aspects of the course. So I fully hope that my presentation will complement the work that Ruth and Karl have done with you previously and give you some further guidance with regard to, as I say, achieving excellence within your chosen course. So the aims of the courses that you've chosen to follow, I guess, have a number of aims. One is to enhance your skills as clinicians and practitioners, but I think from my perspective, one of the very important skills that you need to develop and will be developed as part of studying the postgraduate diploma and potentially subsequently the MSc is the ability to make the best use of the available research and evidence to support the elements of work that you have to submit as part of your course. And that's really what I want to talk to you about. So to help to do that, during this presentation, I'll provide some examples of what I think is required to achieve excellence in the discussion forum and in the reports that you have to submit. And also then to make you aware of some of the potential pitfalls and bad practice that can occur and how to avoid them. And I suppose I should say really that the slides I put together and the content of this talk are largely based around my experience of tutoring for Diploma MSc. Over the years that I've been doing this, I must have read thousands of posts in the discussion forum, and as you can imagine, some of those posts are truly excellent and make very good use of the evidence base. And some of them certainly could be improved. So, as I say, this is largely based on my experience of being a tutor, and hopefully you'll find the guidance helpful. I think by now you would have been told, and you will realise, that there are a number of elements to the course that you're studying. There are weekly case studies and multiple choice questions. There's the reflective journal, which Dr. Davis has spoken to you about. And there's also the group report, the individual report, and the weekly discussion forum. And I think it's these three elements, the group report, the individual report, and the weekly discussion forum, where myself and other tutors will really look to see that you've made good use of the best available evidence that there is to construct your answers and to construct your arguments. So I would say what you need to do is engage with the relevant and the contemporary literature. And by that I mean going beyond just reading that literature and actually engaging in some critical appraisal of the literature and understanding the type of evidence that you're using. Excuse me. So I thought the way I would do this is by using an example in the context of the weekly discussion forum. So again, as you, by now I'm sure you're aware, each week a new discussion topic is started by the tutor in the weekly discussion forum. And as students, you're required to make articulate and evidence-based posts, hopefully at least twice a week. Sometimes people will make more posts than that. I guess depending on other pressures and stresses of work at the time. So one of the modules that I tutor, and one of the modules I've tutored for a number of years, is Module 2 on the Obesity and Weight Management Diploma. And a typical topic or way in which I might start a discussion in the discussion forum is to start with a question as simple as, please discuss the association between obesity and mortality. So I think as students, what you need to do at that point is to stop and to consider what evidence are you going to use in the discussion forum to address this question. As I'm sure you know, the evidence comes in many different forms. We can pick up daily newspapers and read about scientific research and the findings of scientific research, and some of those newspaper articles, I guess, are based on research and therefore are somewhat evidence-based. The internet, of course, is a very rich source of information. Magazines, expert opinion. We all have opinions. Some of us have more expertise than others. I'm sure you'll work with colleagues who are regarded as experts and you listen to their opinions. And these opinions may be solidly based in evidence or they may not. Of course, we have access to textbooks, which hopefully are based on evidence. We have evidence-based digests. But of course, at the top of the list, you'll see scientific publications. And by that, of course, we mean peer-reviewed journal articles and authoritative reports, such as reports coming from the World Health Organization or the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence. And I would put it to you that these, at the top of this list, the scientific publications, particularly in highly ranked peer-reviewed journals, is where we should be searching for our evidence to support and substantiate the arguments that we make, both in the group report, in your independent reports, the individual reports, and also in the discussion forum. So let's just pause for a while and consider the different types of studies and study designs that are used in medicine. And of course, not just in medicine, but in social sciences and in psychology and in many other disciplines as well. And there are a number of ways in which we can classify research in different types of studies. And I've chosen here to keep it relatively simple and straightforward. And I've divided study designs or research into what we describe as primary research and secondary research. By primary research, we're essentially talking about observational studies, which include things like ecological studies, cross-sectional surveys, case control studies, and prospective and retrospective cohort studies. These are studies where the authors, the investigators of this research, have collected primary data, analysed that data, arrived at some kind of interpretation and drawn some conclusions. When you're reading study designs, when you're reading these observational studies, then of course the methodology should tell you what type of study it is you're reading. So even if you can't immediately recognize whether it's a case control study or a cross-sectional survey or an ecological study, there should be some reference to the type of study design used in the methodology. The other kind of primary studies that you will undoubtedly make use of are experimental and quasi-experimental research designs. So typically these are controlled and non-controlled trials, studies that aim to investigate the effect of interventions. And some of these studies will include randomization and some of them won't have randomization. And the second broad group of studies, which I'll talk quite a bit about in this brief presentation, is secondary studies. And by secondary studies, we're really referring to reviews reviews which synthesize and summarize evidence. Sometimes these reviews are narrative reviews and sometimes they are systematic reviews. But the key point I want to make at this here is that when you are engaging in the discussion forum, when you are preparing your group report, when you are preparing your individual report, it's important to know and understand what type of study and what type of evidence you are using. In terms of secondary research, or sometimes people refer to it as desk research, I guess for obvious reasons, this is the kind of research that doesn't require investigators or researchers to actively collect data, but to make use of previously published research or data which already exists. And there are a number of different types of literature reviews. I've mentioned two already: the narrative literature review and the systematic literature review. But we also will encounter literature reviews referred to as meta-analysis, scoping reviews, umbrella reviews, and expert reports. And should you choose to go on to study the MSc once you finish your diploma, then the research methodologies module will go into much greater detail about secondary research and the different types of reviews and how to conduct a systematic review with or without meta-analysis. And I've included a website reference for you on this slide, which I hope you'll find useful, which will provide you with information about different types of reviews and how to critically analyze and interpret the findings of these reviews. I'm sure that many of you will have come across the pyramid which is on the left hand side of the screen as I look at it. It's referred to as the pyramid of evidence, or sometimes the hierarchy of evidence. And you'll see that at the bottom of that pyramid we have, in this case series. Just above that we have cross-sectional studies. Then we have case control studies. We have retrospective cohort studies. Then we have prospective studies. And sitting at the top of that pyramid is the RCT, the randomized controlled trial. And as I say, I'm sure that many of you would have come across these terms before and will already appreciate that these types of studies are used to address different kinds of questions, and they provide us with different levels of evidence. So if we look at the table on the right hand side of the slide, this is taken from the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, and this is a grading system. And you'll see that at the top of that grading system, level of evidence 1++ are high quality meta-analyses, systematic reviews of randomized controlled trials, or randomized controlled trials with a very low risk of bias. And just beneath that 1 star, we have well conducted meta-analyses, systematic reviews of RCTs, or RCTs with a low risk of bias. So there's not a great deal of difference between the 1 star and the 1 star, other than something to do with the quality and the risk of bias in the studies that have been considered. These are regarded as the highest levels of evidence. So we can, at this stage, go one step further with our pyramid and include at the very top, above RCT, systematic reviews and meta-analyses. But it's also important, I guess, to look to the bottom of the table and to see what kind of evidence is regarded as 2 star, 3 or 4 star. And we see case control studies or cohort studies with a high risk of confounding and bias. We see non-analytical studies, for example, case reports and case series. And we see expert opinion and formal consensus. So the point, again, I wish to kind of reiterate, if you like, is that when you are presented with questions in the discussion forum, when you are attempting to answer your assessments, whether it be the case report or the individual report, it's important to understand the type of study that you're using to address the question, to construct your arguments, where that study sits in the hierarchy of evidence, what level of evidence it presents. So it's worthwhile becoming familiar with grading systems such as the one you can see on the slide, because there are other grading systems which are similar but not exactly the same, and understand the level of evidence that you're using. Okay, so let's return to the topic of discussion, which I started the presentation with. Imagine that we are at the beginning of a week in the discussion forum, and the tutor has presented the question to the group: please discuss the association between obesity and mortality. And I said at this point I think it's a good idea to start to think about what type of evidence are you going to use. So as I mentioned, newspapers often report, especially newspapers in the United Kingdom like the Daily Express, often report headlines like this: obesity is linked to 11 cancers. And this represents, I suppose, some form of evidence. You'd like to think that that headline is backed up by evidence. But should you use this article from the Daily Express to inform your report, or to use it to construct an argument in the discussion forum? I would suggest definitely not. We can certainly look for and find much, much better sources of evidence than daily newspapers. And one of the reasons that, of course, we should avoid using newspapers is exemplified in the study which is presented on the right-hand side of this slide, which reports misrepresentation of the findings of randomized controlled trials in press releases and news coverage. And it says in the conclusion, spin was identified in about half of press releases and media coverage. And the main factor associated with spin in the press releases was the presence of spin in the article abstract conclusion. So essentially what this is saying is that I guess the process which takes place is that often university marketing and press departments will send out press releases based on the research of some of the academics working in those institutions. Those press releases are read by journalists, science journalists in newspapers, and they will report the findings of that study in the newspapers based on what they read in the press release. But we cannot be 100% confident that the press release is accurately reporting the research. And of course, what the press release is unlikely to do is comment on the weaknesses and the limitations of the research. So, moving along, if you like, to other forms of evidence, perhaps better than newspapers, but again, I would suggest maybe not the best form of evidence. We can find all kinds of reports on the internet, such as this one on the NHS website in the United Kingdom, which reports that obesity is now a leading cause of death, especially in men. Again, I would suggest not a particularly good source of information, a good source of evidence to use and to cite, to reference in your reports. But on the other hand, you could include it in a discussion forum with some critical analysis. This now looks much more promising. We have an article published in the European Heart Journal, so a fairly highly ranked, peer-reviewed journal specializing in cardiology. The title of the review article seems highly relevant. It's talking about body habitus and the risk of coronary heart disease in men. There are multiple authors from different universities and organizations in the United Kingdom. So, could we use this in our discussion forum? I guess we could, but I would say we can do better. If we look at the date of this particular article, it's 1997. So it's at least, it's more than 20 years old now. So we can certainly look for more contemporary evidence to support the work, the arguments that we're constructing. I also know that if you were to read this article, it lacks any major critical analysis. So it's largely a descriptive review article. So there are much better forms of evidence that we can utilize. Now we move on to an individual, to a primary study rather than an evidence synthesis. This is a paper published, as you can see, in the journal Circulation just less than a decade ago, in the year 2000. Again, a highly ranked journal, peer-reviewed. We can put trust and faith in what we read, hopefully, in this journal. The title is certainly relevant. It's looking at the impact of body mass index as well as metabolic syndrome on the risk of cardiovascular disease and death, but it's very specifically about middle-aged men. So if we think back to the question that we're addressing, what is the association between obesity and mortality? This is certainly relevant, but it only forms part of the picture. It's specifically about middle-aged men. And finally, we move on to this article. This is a 2016 systematic review with dose-response meta-analysis, which is reporting the findings of 230 cohort studies with more than 3.74 million deaths among 30.3 million participants. It's published in a British medical journal. And if we think back a few moments ago to the presentation of the hierarchy of evidence, you'll recall that systematic reviews and meta-analysis sit clearly at the top of the evidence hierarchy. It's contemporary, it's 2016, and also, very importantly, because it's a systematic review, it includes a clear and transparent methodology. And you can see part of the methodology outlined on the right-hand side of the slide. The methodology reports the search strategy and inclusion criteria. It includes study selection, how the authors extracted data and what data the authors extracted, and some of the statistical methods used. So this means we can engage in meaningful critical analysis. We can look at the methods that we used, and we can try our best to draw conclusions about the quality of this systematic review. So just because it's a systematic review and it sits at the top of the hierarchy of evidence, we shouldn't automatically assume that it's high quality. It's for us as academics, as students, as researchers, as scholars, to read this research paper, to use tools which are available to us to make our own conclusions about whether or not this is high quality evidence. Just because it's a systematic review, it doesn't mean we shouldn't engage with the literature and attempt critical analysis. So to come back to the question, what is the association between obesity and mortality? Then I would certainly expect to see in any discussion or in any report addressing that question, this kind of evidence used in constructing answers and arguments. We can take it one step further. I'm not sure how many people are aware of this, who have come across this idea, this concept. I mentioned a moment ago the importance of critically analysing systematic reviews and not just accepting them as a systematic review, that they are top of the hierarchy of evidence. But there are methods available to us to critically analyse, to systematically review systematic reviews. So to summarise with some key messages, I would suggest to you that you should be aware of the hierarchy of evidence and that some research designs and studies are stronger than others. But, as I've just been saying, don't take the hierarchy of evidence too literally. You should attempt some level of critical analysis and engagement with the literature, with the studies you're using. And my final key message is, at this part at least of the presentation, is to stop and to reflect and consider, what question are you being asked? What is the strongest evidence that you can find and use to support your argument? Okay, so a chance now to explore what I've been talking about in a little bit more depth, and I'm going to use some examples taken from the discussion forum, and it might be a good idea, if you're watching this as a recording, that you can stop, think, and start to write down the answer to the question, how effective is liraglutide for the treatment of obesity? What evidence would you use to support your answer? What information would you include? The question, on the face of it, seems very straightforward. It's short, it's precise. How effective is liraglutide for the treatment of obesity? What information would you include? What evidence would you use to support your answer? I think, my opinion, my advice would be, in addressing this particular question, you would be correct to look at randomized controlled trials or systematic reviews of randomized controlled trials that are directly addressing this question. We know that they're available. We should also be looking to use, I guess most of the time, the most contemporary, the most up-to-date evidence that we can find. But what about this word effective? How do we determine whether or not liraglutide is effective for the treatment of obesity and how effective it is? Okay. So in constructing your answer, whether it be in the case discussion forum or maybe in a report, the kind of information I personally would expect to see would be things like the age, the sex, the ethnicity of the participants taking part in the randomized controlled trial, the degree of obesity, whether there's existing comorbidity, the number of patients who've been treated, the number of people in the control group, and how patients are allocated, whether they're allocated on a one-to-one basis or whether the ratio of number treated to number of control patients is different. Of course, we're interested in effectiveness, so we would like to know what is the average or the typical change in the primary and secondary outcomes of the study. So the primary outcome is likely to be, in a study like this, loss in body weight or loss of body weight, but the study is also likely to have secondary outcomes, changes in blood lipids, changes in blood pressure, and so on. So we'd like to know, in addressing this question, what is the average change in the primary and secondary outcomes? But as well as reporting the average change, we'd like to know what is the variation around that change. Do those people who experience a reduction in body weight all experience much the same reduction in body weight, or is the reduction in body weight, does it vary quite considerably? Something else which I guess is very important to report so that we have a full understanding, a full answer to this particular question, is related to the precision of the estimates of the change. And this is generally reported as the 95% confidence interval. NNT stands for, some of you will know, I'm sure, number needed to treat. How many patients are needed to be do we need to treat with liraglutide in order to get an effective outcome? We also would like to know something about the unintended consequences of treatment, side effects, adverse events, and very importantly, of course, something about the strengths and weaknesses of the study, the summary and a summary and a conclusion. And of course, very importantly, whenever we are using the literature to construct answers and arguments, we should always reference the work thoroughly. And the university recommends the use of the Harvard referencing system. Okay? And when you do that, another tip, if you like, is you should consider whether you're citing a single primary study or whether you are citing a review article, because of course a review article is a summary of multiple studies rather than a single primary study. So I hope that makes some sense to you, and I've just tried to summarize as best I can, bearing in mind what I'm trying to achieve with this particular talk, and that's about achieving excellence in posts within the group forum discussion and also in submitted written reports about how to fully answer this particular question: how effective is liraglutide for the treatment of obesity? And of course, I'm using a particular example, but the same principles would hold true for other questions, other similar questions that are about the effectiveness of particular treatments. Another example: what is the risk of type 2 diabetes in people who have obesity? Again, a very direct and very specific and clear question. What evidence would you use to support your answer, and what information would you include? In my opinion, because this question is asking about the risk of type 2 diabetes in people who have obesity, then we should be looking for prospective cohort studies or systematic reviews of prospective cohort studies, because these studies in our hierarchy of evidence will give us the best, strongest level of evidence for directly addressing this particular question. Again, the issue of using the most contemporary, up-to-date research, of course, is important. And the kind of information I might expect to see reported in a post, in a discussion forum, in a report, includes things like the age of the participants in the study, their sex, their ethnicity, their degree of obesity again, whether they have comorbidity. This time we're not talking about the number of participants in the study who are treated or are not treated, but we're talking about the number of participants who are exposed or who are not exposed. And the exposure in this case is obesity. So we're asking, what is the risk of type 2 diabetes in people with obesity compared to the risk of type 2 diabetes in people who do not have obesity? It would be nice to see something about the number of participants who were followed up in the prospective cohort study, something about the average length of follow-up, because this tells us something about how, this is telling us directly about how long patients have been followed, or participants, I should say, in this study rather than patients. Person time of follow-up, the number of participants who drop out, lost to follow-up. Confounding is a big weakness in many cohort studies. So we also need to know how have the investigators in this study controlled confounding. And the measures of effect in a cohort study, such as this, would include things like the relative risk, the odds ratio, the hazard ratio. And whenever we report relative risks, odds ratios or hazard ratios, we should also report their precision or their 95% confidence interval. Again, demonstrating some critical analysis, identifying any particular strengths or weaknesses you see in this study, and providing a summary or conclusion. So, two different questions, both in the context of obesity, but one is about the effectiveness of treatment, the other one is about the risk of a particular outcome in relation to a particular exposure, as I said, in this case, obesity. To address those two questions requires looking at different types of studies. And I've included a third example, again from the field of diabetes. Slightly different question this time. How accurate is fasting plasma glucose for identifying individuals with elevated glycated hemoglobin? What evidence would you use to support your answer? What information would you include? So for this, I would suggest the ideal kinds of studies to be looking at are screening studies or systematic reviews of screening studies. And the kind of information that I would expect to see reported, again, would include something about the participant characteristics, their age, their sex, their ethnicity. And the results of this study are likely to be reported in terms of the sensitivity, the specificity, and the positive and negative predictive values associated with using fasting plasma glucose to identify individuals with elevated HbA1cs. So 3 different questions, each requiring evidence-based answers, and the evidence that you would use to provide and support your answers comes from different types of studies. That's the key point that I wish to make. Okay. Some further words of caution and some additional guidance, just to make you aware of a few things that you may not be aware of, and certainly from past experiences, I've certainly encountered students who are not aware of some of these issues. I've been speaking about the need to use evidence and high quality evidence and where we find high quality evidence. And we tend to think that high quality evidence is presented to us in the form of peer-reviewed papers in scientific journals, which is true. But we also need to be aware of predatory journals and publishers. And this is just a snapshot, a screen grab, if you like, from Wikipedia, which explains what we mean by predatory journals and predatory publishing. Put simply, just because a research paper is published in a journal and it looks genuine, it looks legitimate, you have to be aware of the large number nowadays of predatory journals that are available via the internet. There's no easy way of identifying predatory journals, but it's certainly worthwhile being aware of them. And there are guidelines available on the internet which help you to try and identify predatory journals. Of course, if you're utilizing journals such as the Lancet, the New England Journal of Medicine, the British Medical Journal, highly regarded, highly respected journals in the fields of medicine that many of you will work, then that's fine. But I think it is important to be aware, say, that sometimes, especially using the internet and internet search engines, we can quite easily stumble upon scientific research papers, articles, as I say, which look genuine, but they may not be of the quality that we would want to use. Another small piece of advice, and an advice that I've certainly been given on many occasions, and that's to avoid just reading the abstract and or the conclusion of a research paper. It's very tempting to do this. Of course, we're all time pressured. We all are very busy people. We are trying to study and engage in academic research as well as doing our day jobs. And it's very, very easy, very tempting sometimes to just read abstracts and conclusions. Now, of course, this is fine if you are pushed for time and you just need to quickly get an appreciation of what a particular research paper is saying, but you need to be very careful about using, if you've only read the abstract and or the conclusion of a paper, that you would include that in any piece of written work. Of course, what you really must do is read the entire research paper understand why you're reading it, appreciate what type of research it is, and try and engage in some critical analysis. One final point, and I think it's a very important point that I'd like to make to you, and I'll do that with the help of the next 3 slides, is to suggest to you, to say to you that you should always look for and consider alternative evidence and opinions. And as I say, I think the best way for me to illustrate this point is to use an example. So on the slide in front of you, you'll see a research paper published in the journal Food and Nutrition Sciences, and it's about a highly controversial area, one of us that will an area in science that many of us will be familiar with, and it's about population dietary guidelines, and whether or not, you know, people in population should be eating more saturated fat, less saturated fat, and whether the guidelines are correct, if you like. And this paper argues that some of the dietary guidelines that have been applied in the United Kingdom, the USA, and other countries are based upon the results and findings of the 7 countries study, which, as it says in the abstract, and I've underlined it for you, was seminal work behind the 1984 nutritional guidelines. Okay, so if you were not careful, you could quite easily read this particular paper. It's a peer-reviewed paper in a scientific journal in which the authors of this paper express an opinion based on their review of the literature, if you like, and their opinion of the 7 country studies and this and its strengths and weaknesses. And the same group of researchers have published a systematic review and a meta-analysis, as we've been hearing, you know, top of the hierarchy of evidence, high quality research, 1 star in some grading systems. It's published in Open Heart, it's peer reviewed, and similar conclusions are drawn, criticizing, if you like, the formulation of dietary recommendations on the basis that they were not supported by evidence from randomized controlled trials. However, the story doesn't end there. As I say, you could, if you're not careful, make a mistake by only referring to the previous study or the previous article published in Food and Nutrition Sciences and reading and utilizing this particular article in Open Heart. As I say, you would only be getting part of the story, because if you were to follow up some of the correspondence published in Open Heart, and I've given the link to the website on the particular slide, and also a link to another website, Science Media Centre, you will find that this particular systematic review and meta-analysis attracted a lot of attention, both in the media and also a large number of letters and subsequent commentary and correspondence that was published, to say, by the Science Media Centre and in the journal itself. And if you read that correspondence, it gives an alternative opinion. And just to follow up and finish that particular story, if you like, it also resulted in the production of this particular report by authors in the United States, which is a 54-page rebuttal and support of the work of Ansel Keys in the 7 country study. So I'm not taking one side or the other in this particular argument. It's a highly controversial area that attracts an awful lot of attention, both in the scientific literature and in the popular press. The point I'm simply making is that, as I said on the earlier slide, it's very important to always look for and to consider alternative evidence and opinions. So, to move along now to talk about something related to what we've been discussing, but slightly different. I've been making the point that it's not sufficient often to just simply read, and certainly it's not sufficient to read an abstract and a conclusion, but what we should all aim to become are critical readers and thinkers. Okay. Non-critical reading, if you're a non-critical reader, you're satisfied with recognizing what a particular text says and simply restating the key remarks. So this might be something that we encounter, in written reports that are submitted for assessment and in the group discussion forum, where students almost report verbatim, word for word, what researchers have reported in their particular research papers. In other words, there's no attempt to engage in any kind of meaningful critical analysis. Non-critical readers accept what they read as fact. If you become a critical reader, you're aiming to go beyond accepting and restating. To be a critical reader involves careful, active, reflective, and analytical reading. Of course, it takes more time, it's more of a challenge, but we should all aim to become critical readers and thinkers, not just people who accept what's written in front of us. Critical thinking involves evaluating information and ideas before deciding what to accept and believe. And I think, speaking personally, I would much rather see attempts in the discussion forum to engage in some critical reading, critical thinking, critical analysis, to provide some commentary about strengths and weaknesses of research that you use to inform your posts, rather than non-critical reading and simply the regurgitation, if you like, of information that we find written in research papers. So how do you become a critical reader? Be clear about why you are reading the research paper. We are all time limited. We all have many other things going on in our lives, in our personal lives, in our work lives. So it's important to be selective with what we read and to be clear about the reasons we're reading a particular research paper. When you read your research papers, identify any possible sources of bias by considering the author's affiliations and funding sources. It's almost one of the first things that we should do when we read a research paper is consider who are the authors, where do they work, what are their affiliations, is there any evidence in this research paper that the findings could be influenced, if you like, by the funding source. Read research papers with skepticism. Look out for weaknesses and limitations. Look for alternative interpretations of the work and unsubstantiated claims in the discussion section. There is guidelines, or I should say there are guidelines available to us to help us to become more critical readers when we consider and when we read our research papers. And here's a simple list, if you like, some questions to ask yourself when you read a research paper. I'm not going to read out every single line to you, but there are guidelines available to help us to become more critical in our reading and to become better at critical analysis. And here's a list, not an exclusive list, there are many other resources available, but a good starting point. Here are some useful resources for critical appraisal and evidence-based medicine. And I would just like to finish this particular part of the talk by addressing this question, because I've been talking about the need to utilise not just evidence, but to try and utilise the best available evidence when you're constructing your arguments, your work. How do you find the best evidence? Well, one thing you, I guess, shouldn't do, but it's very tempting to do it, and that's just to type a keyword into Google. Ideally, what we should do is think about we should develop a search strategy, identifying key dates, keywords, the relevant databases that we need to use to identify the types of research and the high quality research that we want to use in our work. So there are a range of electronic sources of evidence available to you via the university library. Google Scholar, of course, is widely available, but consider using Science Direct, the Cochrane database, PubMed or Medline, Embase, Ovid. As I'm sure you're aware, there are lots of these databases available, and it's good practice to become familiar with some of them and to become fairly well skilled and equipped to use these databases to search for the information that we need. And finally, to try and finish, if you like, on something hopefully which you'll find helpful and a little bit lighter than what we've been talking about, and I'd like to provide you some tips for good scientific writing. What we like to see in both, of course, the written report, the individual report, and in a discussion forum is a high quality of scientific writing. So these slides will be available to you, so you can stop and you can refer back to them whenever you need to, or if you need to. But I would suggest certainly following these guidelines. Avoid the following. Avoid using adjectives that add subjectivity to your work. Very inadequate should be simply inadequate. Slightly flawed should be flawed. The words very and slightly there don't add anything really other than some subjectivity. Try and avoid using journalistic terms. The population are crying out for more exercise is actually a particular sentence which I've seen in a piece of written work. I would suggest that a more appropriate term could be the population would benefit from more exercise. Avoid writing as if you are texting, tweeting or emailing. And also avoid the indiscriminate and incorrect use of exclamation marks, colons, capital letters and other punctuation marks. As I've demonstrated in my example, the study has several weaknesses, doesn't require an exclamation mark. Also avoid stating research observations as fact or as the undisputed truth. The truth is only the truth until better evidence shows otherwise. It's much better to talk about the evidence suggests, or maybe the evidence strongly suggests, rather than talking about research observations as being fact. Also try and avoid quoting directly unless there is a good reason to do so. And I've provided a quote which many of you will be familiar with, which I guess, would be a worthwhile quote. As to diseases, make a habit of two things: to help, or at least to do no harm. Is a form of words worthy of quotation. The words which I've given below are taken directly from a research paper in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition 2010. Nevertheless, the ViScan system, which is a system for measuring body fat basically, may still prove to be a valuable motivational instrument for the health practitioner, with a possible future role in screening for abdominal obesity. Those are the exact words of the authors of that research paper, and they don't need quoting. Much better if you use a piece of research like that to paraphrase using your own words. try and avoid as much as you can using phrases such as "in my opinion" or "I think this is." I say as much as possible because there might be instances where it's perfectly appropriate to start a sentence by saying "in my opinion," but it's much better to back up those opinions by providing supporting evidence. So instead, try and use phrases such as "based on the evidence, one interpretation of," and you can fill in the rest of that sentence. Try and avoid writing in the first person voice. For example, "I will be searching using the PubMed database," but aim to write in the third person voice. "The PubMed database was searched." And if you're not fully sure about what this means, then again I would direct you to a number of different website-based resources that can provide information about this. Something that I guess I see quite frequently is where people cite continuously using one source. It's difficult to avoid. Clearly, if you're utilizing a piece of work, a piece of research, which is extremely important, and you're using it repeatedly in constructing your argument, then rather than citing it continuously, a simple tip would be just to make it clear to the person who's reading your work that you will be using that one piece of work quite extensively, and argue why you'd be doing that. Importantly, avoid describing when you've been asked to explain, discuss, or analyze. If you just think about that for a moment, the discussion forum is perhaps called the discussion forum for a particular reason. Discussion implies the need to engage in critical analysis, to provide alternative opinions, and to go beyond simply trying to describe what the research evidence tells us. Okay, so try always to discuss, try and be analytical, explain difficult concepts when they need explaining. Try and avoid using old studies unless there's a very good reason why you're using an old study. And if you are using an old study that one might think is out of date, but you have a good reason for doing it, then state in your work why you're relying on an old study. Does it have particular strengths and weaknesses? Did it break new ground? Make it clear that you fully understand why it is you're using that particular piece of research in your work. Try and avoid using websites to support your answer, unless, of course, you're utilizing a website that we can rely upon. Websites such as the American Diabetes Association, the World Health Organization, Cancer Research UK, and so on. They might be appropriate sources of information if you're looking for perhaps some statistics around the prevalence or the incidence of a disease. But much better to try and avoid using those websites and to go to the kinds of studies that we've been talking about in this presentation: primary studies and secondary studies. Try and avoid completing your work in a hurry. It's easier said than done, but plan your work in plenty of time. Give yourself time to identify the literature, the studies that you need to read. Give yourself time to read those studies and to interpret them. An interpretation needs critical appraisal. And despite the fact that I used Wikipedia earlier on in this presentation to talk about predatory journals, try at all times, if you can, to avoid using Wikipedia other than for your own rapid reading. And my penultimate slide is I would suggest that you try and do the following. I've told you what you should try and avoid doing. Now I'll give you a couple of pointers on what I think you should try and do. Be selective with the research and the evidence that you use, and understand why you've used it. That, in a nutshell, is what this 45-minute talk has really been about. being selective, understanding the nature of the research and the evidence that you're using to support your work. Reference your work accurately and consistently. At all times, avoid plagiarism. The university provides very clear guidelines on what plagiarism is and the need to avoid plagiarism. It is a serious academic offence, and it should be avoided. So make sure you reference your work accurately and consistently. If you really are paying, great attention to detail, one common mistake that I see is sometimes people might write something such as studies show, and then they don't provide a reference. So whenever I see the words studies show, I'm immediately looking for a reference. Which studies? Try and show some critical analysis. This can mean acknowledging excellent research as well as highlighting weaknesses. Don't fall into that trap. Don't think that critical analysis is only about identifying weaknesses in studies. If studies are, extraordinarily well conducted to the highest possible scientific standards, then that's worth acknowledging in any discussion post or piece of work as well. And finally, I would say, aim for quality over quantity. Of course, certain pieces of work have word targets attached to them, if you like, and you should always make use of the word target. If you're allowed to use 1,500 words for a particular piece of work, aim to use 1,500 words. But the important thing is to go for quality over quantity. Construct a careful argument that addresses the question you have been given and not the one that you want to answer. Okay, I think that's an important point. Make sure you address the question head on. And I think that brings, oh no, I've got one slide left. If you're unsure about the question, seek some clarification. Organize your writing with a clear structure. Use headings and subheadings. Even if you think it's helpful, use numbered paragraphs. Often if you're writing an extended piece of work, rather than repeating yourself, it's sometimes useful to have numbered paragraphs, and you can refer your reader back to a particular paragraph with a particular number. Help your readers by signposting. For example, somewhere in your post or somewhere in a piece of written work, you might say further information can be found in a particular resource. Remember that the discussion forum is a team effort, and that team effort, when harnessed, can really produce an excellent source of information that benefits everybody. Ensure you write succinctly and precisely, and proofread your work before submission. I've talked about plagiarism briefly, so always ensure that you use the Harvard referencing system. I think other speakers have probably already talked to you about utilizing the criteria that are provided for each assessment. In striving to achieve excellence, make sure you know what is required to achieve that A grade by referring to the assessment criteria. Try not to be anxious, as I know some people are, certainly at the beginning of the first week of the first discussion forum. Start with some short, simple posts. Build your confidence and get into the habit, the routine, the flow of contributing to the discussion forum. Importantly, have fun and enjoy the experience. Share information sometimes it's off subject. That's certainly something that I always try and do and encourage when I'm tutoring, is to invite people to add information which I say is off subject to the discussion forum, and to ask questions of one another. And I'm sure that if you have any questions, the staff at Diploma MSc would be more than happy to hear from you. Thanks for listening.
that is the end of the Diploma MSc webinar, the induction day. So I'd just like to thank you for joining us, and I'd also like to thank our speakers, Dr. Ruth Davis, Dr. Karl, Simon Williams and Lou Wallace from the university. I hope that you found all the information useful, and we look forward to you beginning your course. Thank you. Bye.